Xianxia sits before the eternal heaven god emperor, a holy light gathering at the emperor's chest. But a crimson calamity is knocking at their door, and the truth of the evil god's daughter is about to be revealed. Leave a like and subscribe to walk this path. Qi sat in front of the eternal heaven god emperor with both his palms facing outward. A white layer of holy, profound light was gathering at the center of the eternal heaven god emperor's chest. He had already been maintaining this posture for 12 hours straight. The eternal heaven god emperor looked to be at peace. His complexion had never looked better since the day he was plagued by the devilish energy. Light profound energy was darkness profound energy's greatest bane. Although Xianxia's power was completely incomparable to the evil infants, the radiant divine art he cultivated was absolutely a divine miracle of life, of the highest level. That was why the devilish energy stuck inside the eternal heaven god emperor's powers was slowly, but surely being purified by his light profound energy. His evil god's profound veins didn't have a light seed, and the time he spent to cultivate his light profound energy was very short. However, his mastery of the light profound energy was already shockingly advanced. Back then, Xianxia speculated that his extraordinary speed of mastery probably had something to do with his evil god's profound veins. They were creation god-level profound veins after all. When 12 hours had passed, Xianxia was at the brink of exhaustion. The eternal heaven god emperor opened his eyes and said gently, "Xianxia, let us stop here." Xianxia also opened his eyes and withdrew the light profound energy as advised. He lowered his arms and exhaled deeply, saying, "My cultivation is still too weak. Please stay in the snow song realm a little longer, senior. This junior promises to purify all the devilish energy inside your body in 5 days' time." He, the eternal heaven god emperor chuckled before saying, "I know better than you how scary the evil infant's power truly is, so it already comes as a surprise to me that you're able to purify this much in just 12 hours' time. However, the Crimson Calamity is approaching swiftly, and the Eternal Heaven General Assembly will be held in 19 days. I simply cannot afford the time any longer. But with your aid and my own efforts, I can now guarantee that the devilish energy will not attack for at least a month's time. This alone is of tremendous aid and a favor to me, to the Eternal Heaven General Assembly, and to the Eastern Divine Region," said the Eternal Heaven God Emperor from the bottom of his heart. However, his eyes quickly turned dim as a long sigh escaped his lips. Xianxia didn't insist on prolonging the treatment. "It is this junior's honor, senior. Forgive this junior for saying this, but am I right to assume that your thoughts regarding this crimson calamity are extremely pessimistic?" The Eternal Heaven God Emperor was surprised, but he didn't deny Xianxia's claim. He smiled bitterly at the young man and said, "That is correct, although pessimistic is hardly adequate a word to describe what I'm feeling right now." Sigh. Xianxia frowned deeply before asking, "Does this mean that you've already figured out the danger, or should I say, the secret behind the crimson crack?" Amen. Again, the Eternal Heaven God Emperor had acknowledged Xianxia's question. The change of topic had even chased away his relaxation from being cured of part of the devilish energy, and pressed a deep weight onto the God Emperor's shoulders. "What on earth is the—" Xianxia caught himself just in time before apologizing. "This junior has overstepped his bounds and asked something that shouldn't be asked. Please forgive me, senior." It's fine, it's fine." The Eternal Heaven God Emperor's gentle smile never faded. He didn't look like he blamed Xianxia for anything at all. "When the profound God convention was held, I only had vague guesses and assumptions as to the identity behind the crimson crack. But after the young generation had been sent into the Eternal Heaven Divine Realm, the truth of the crimson crack's appearance was then revealed to me. The one who revealed to me the truth was none other than the Eternal Heaven Pearl itself." "I see." Xianxia nodded slowly. Considering that the Eternal Heaven Pearl was an incredibly high-level artifact, and its artifact spirit still remembered everything from the era of gods, it was only natural that its experience and knowledge surpassed all existing living beings. Although Xianxia wanted very much to know the truth, he understood that it was something that he couldn't ask about until it was revealed. The fact that this truth hadn't been made known to the God realm yet was proof of that. "It is an incredibly frightening truth, so frightening that I dare not reveal it to anyone until the time is right. It is because the truth will cause great panic among the people, and things might devolve into something that's even worse than the crimson calamity itself." The Eternal Heaven God Emperor sighed. Xianxia nodded understandingly, knowing exactly what the Eternal Heaven God Emperor was talking about. He said, This junior heard from his master that only divine masters are allowed to participate in this eternal heaven general assembly. Moreover, all from the Eastern divine region are required to participate without exception. Does this mean that you're ready to announce this truth soon? The eternal heaven god emperor shot Xianxia a deep look before saying, "You have a good nose on your head. That's right, things have become so urgent that I have no choice but to publicize the truth within a small circle, no matter how terrible it is. The reason I'm doing this is because the eternal heaven pearl has informed me that the crimson calamity is on the brink of eruption." Xianxia's heart abruptly sank. Although many large-scale, profound beast riots had been happening throughout the Eastern divine region as of late, they weren't nearly at a level where they could be considered a calamity. At the very least, the chessboard that was the Eastern divine region hadn't been majorly affected. However, no one except the eternal heaven god emperor knew that a great disaster was right around the corner. As the only person who knew the truth, the eternal heaven god emperor, without a doubt, bore the heaviest fear and burden of them all. Even worse, the heavy responsibility of organizing this resistance had also fallen on his shoulders. Back at the profound god convention, Xianxia's cheating had made the eternal heaven god emperor so angry that he had nearly exiled him from the eternal heaven realm on the spot. Angry, Xianxia had rebuked him at the time, but now all Xianxia felt towards the eternal heaven god emperor was respect. The eternal heaven god realm wasn't the strongest king realm of all king realms, but it was probably the one that deserved its title as a king realm the most. Its existence was a blessing upon all of the Eastern divine region, and it was no wonder that they were accepted by the eternal heaven pearl and provided guidance to this day, even after the great eternal heaven ancestor, its original master, was long gone. Xianxia thought to himself for a moment before asking suddenly, "This junior has also heard that you gathered all of Eastern divine region's power to build a dimensional formation that spans nearly half of the primal chaos. This great dimensional formation allows immediate teleportation to the eastmost region of primal chaos from the eternal heaven god realm. Could it be that we will be traveling to the eastmost region of the primal chaos to witness the crimson crack with our own eyes?" "Hey, chuckled the eternal heaven god emperor. "You truly are a smart person. That's right, with this great dimensional formation, we will be able to travel to the eastmost region of primal chaos and respond to the crimson calamity immediately when it happens." But he then shook his head. "This is really all we can do, fight for our biggest chance to succeed. But even this chance is infinitesimally small before the truth we will be facing." The eternal heaven god emperor looked at Xianxia's face and realized that he might have said a little too much already. He said apologetically, "You are still very young. You are nowhere near the age where you should be bearing these responsibilities. It is my fault for having said what shouldn't be said, so please don't let it affect your mind. Perhaps the situation isn't as bad as I think it is. Surely all the minds of the divine masters combined are sufficient to come up with a good response to this disaster. Feel free to forget what I said before." Xianxia frowned deeply until he came to a decision. He said, "Senior, seeing that I have purified part of the devilish energy in you, can I make a wanton request?" "Oh," Xianxia said with determination in his eyes, "I would like to participate in the Eternal Heaven General Assembly and witness the crimson crack with my own eyes as well." "I see." The Eternal Heaven God Emperor's brows furrowed slightly, but they immediately relaxed as he nodded. "All right, Xianxia was caught off guard by the quick response. He thought that his request would be met with resistance, but the Eternal Heaven God Emperor had barely even hesitated before he agreed. "Is it really fine?" "Of course it is," said the Eternal Heaven God with a chuckle. "The reason I limited the participation of this Eternal Heaven General Assembly to divine masters only is because anything below that can hardly affect the situation, and because I don't wish to make the truth widespread. Otherwise, I have no other special reason. I currently owe you a big favor, and I see no reason to bar you from participation if that is your wish." Xianxia immediately said, "Thank you for accepting my request, Senior. My master and I will be venturing to the Eternal Heaven God realm as soon as we are able, so I may purify the devilish energy in you at least one more time." All right." The Eternal Heaven God Emperor accepted the offer with a smile. After Xianxia had sent off the Eternal Heaven God Emperor personally, he discovered that Xia Qingyu and the Shui father and daughter pair were both missing. "Where's Qingyu and Senior Shui?" Xianxia looked left and right. "They're gone," replied Mu Xuanyin. They're gone. Xianxia was stunned by this. When did they leave? 12 hours ago. Mu Xuanyin shot him a sideways glance before saying in a chilly tone, "What's wrong? Do you think that they should hang around, wait for you longingly, and spare you their time when you're finally done?" Her rather heavy rebuke made Xianxia jump a little. He replied hastily, "Not at all. This disciple just missed them a little." Mu Xuanyin didn't say anything to that. "Did King Yu leave a message for me before she left?" Xianxia asked a little worriedly. He didn't quite understand why Mu Xuanyin had attacked him all of a sudden. Mu Xuanyin sent Xia Qingyu's sound transmission Purple Jade flying into Xianxia's palm. "Message her yourself if you were to run into any trouble or danger in the future. In the Eastern Divine region, there is nothing she cannot solve unless you go and provoke the Brahma Monarch God realm itself." Xianxia's disappointment finally lessened a little when he saw the Purple Jade. He looked up and asked, "Master, is King Yu truly the Moon God Emperor now?" Even now, he found the fact to be hard to believe. Originally, he was going to ask Xia Qingyu this face-to-face, but now Mu Xuanyin was his only choice left. Moon God Emperor, it was an incredibly profound title that he just couldn't relate to Xia Qingyu no matter how he tried. "I will talk to you about this and the evil infant later," said Mu Xuanyin in an indifferent tone. "Is there anything you wish to ask regarding the glazed light little princess?" Xianxia thought for a moment before shaking his head. "No." Mu Xuanyin turned around and looked at him. "Is that a sigh of relief that I hear? Does that mean that you feel nothing intimate for her?" Xianxia raised his eyebrows, but he still nodded. "Of course not. She and I barely interacted with each other or knew each other at all. Of course there are no such feelings between us." "Your engagement with the glazed light little princess is practically known to all," said Mu Xuanyin. "What is your opinion on this?" Xianxia exhaled slightly before answering. Both Palace Master Bingyun and the Great Elder knows that this engagement was originally a plan of convenience to avoid the wrath of the Glazed Light Realm King. The Glazed Light Realm King himself was aware of this. At first I thought that she was just playing around, and that she would forget about this engagement completely after 3,000 years. But, he discovered that he was understanding women less and less recently. All of the women around him were the products of incredibly long association or great sacrifices. But Shui Meiyin had become attached to him without any warning after the god-conferred battle. Moreover, her obsession had lasted for 3,000 years and showed no signs of fading whatsoever. He couldn't understand her at all. Even better, the reason behind it all was that soul battle. Logically speaking, she should be absolutely disgusted and ashamed at him because he had beaten her using the most lowly, despicable, shameless, and obscene method. He had even been prepared to be destroyed by her older sister, Shui Yingyu back then. However, the outcome was something he couldn't have imagined even in his dreams. Maybe the girl was secretly a weird masochist or something. Mu Bingyun narrowed her eyes and stared at him for so long that he was even starting to feel anxious. Finally, she said, "I heard that she stole the divine water of life to save your life during your first battle against Luo Changsheng. Is that true?" "Amen," Xianxia nodded. "Did you know that she had arrived at almost the same time as Luo Guxi?" This meant that she flew out of THR Glazed Light Realm immediately after she had received news of your survival. She even dragged her father, the Glazed Light Realm King, with her. "Do you understand what this means?" Mu Xuanyin asked again. "I understand. How do you plan to respond to this?" Xianxia fell silent for a while before answering. "I will do my best to repay her and the Glazed Light Realm." "Repay?" Mu Xuanyin frowned slightly. "You are much better at dealing with women than you are in cultivating the profound way. Are you seriously telling me that she wants you to repay her?" Xianxia, "I don't care what your thoughts are on this matter or what is holding you back from taking the right action." But Mu Xuanyin looked away from Xianxia and turned her back on him, her voice imposing. "Not only do you have an engagement with the glazed light little princess, this engagement is known to the entire world. If you're dead, then it doesn't matter. But you're alive now, and so you're forbidden from breaking your promises. You must marry her." Chi's head jerked upwards as he said with a stupefied expression on his face, "Master, this matter. There is no need to say another word." Mu Xuanyin cut off his words in a cold voice. "I am not asking for your opinion in regards to this matter. Whether you personally want to or not, you have no choice but to agree in the end." Xianxia, "As a man, you must never make promises so rashly. Marriage concerns one's life, and even more than that, it concerns the reputation of the girl in question as well, and that is something that can't ever be taken lightly. Since you have already made a promise and this matter is known to all, then you must not break your word." What's more, when it comes to family backgrounds, she is the little princess of the glazed light realm, and as long as she is willing, she will definitely become the glazed light realm king in the future. When it comes to aptitude and innate talent, she possesses the only stainless divine soul in the entire universe, and she is already a 7th-level divine master despite being only 3,000 years old. As such, everyone says that she will definitely reach the level of the god emperors based on her own power alone in the future. When it comes to looks, I'm afraid that she is second only to the Xianxia in the eastern divine region. You just returned to the god realm, so it's natural that you do not understand what the two words, goddess Yin, mean in the eastern divine region. Her fame and reputation has long since far surpassed her father's reputation, has long since far surpassed the fame of all of the other upper realm kings by leaps and bounds. Before her, the only other person in the eastern divine region who truly held the moniker of goddess had been Xianxia Yinger alone. Xianxia's mouth parted slightly. To think that girl who had been so outrageously infatuated with him back then, the woman who still giggled and smiled like a young girl, had actually become such a dazzling figure now that they had met again. No matter how you look at it, she is worth more than 100 of you. What's even more admirable is that she has deep feelings for you, and there definitely isn't any falsity in those emotions. Furthermore, her own father doesn't have any intention of objecting to this. So for the current you, a complex look flashed through Mu Xuanyin's eyes as she proceeded. At the very least, there are absolutely no downsides. This was just the second day since Xianxia had returned to the god realm, and before he could even get started on what he wanted to do, an engagement he had agreed to thanks to his quick wit, back then had now come crashing down on his head, completely catching him off guard. Furthermore, the most important thing was that the person who was suddenly forcing this engagement was not the other party. It was Mu Xuanyin herself. But this matter, there are no buts. Mu Xuanyin was clearly not giving him any opportunity to refuse, and her voice was strangely cold and mighty as she spoke. Listen here, the fact that you are still alive has already been exposed to the world, and very soon, everyone will come to know of it. So think about how you had been afflicted by the Brahma soul death-wishing mark all those years ago, and think about the circumstances that forced you to enter the dragon god realm. Xianxia. To think that she actually knows about the Brahma soul death-wishing mark. Did King Yu tell her? Among your peers, you are indeed unrivaled. However, never forget just how scary the people who have targeted you are. Just like with Luo Guxi today, if no other person had been by your side, you would have long ago died a dog's death if you had to rely on your power alone. Furthermore, the current strength of her disciple is far beyond your own. In fact, Luo Changsheng's strength is so far above yours that you barely have the qualifications to admire him, let alone that Brahma monarch goddess whose power, ability to scheme, and methods are all extremely terrifying. After the past few years, you should understand better than anyone else the meaning behind the words. An innocent man gets into trouble because of his wealth. Mu Xuanyin's words were heavy. Each and every one of them were filled with an extremely deep admonishment. Since you lack the ability to protect yourself, then you must do your utmost to find a good and reliable patron. Currently, the Moon God Emperor is your backer, but that is only in her own personal capacity, and her support does not represent the support of the Moon God realm. Since you also help the eternal Heaven God Emperor, he will definitely protect you, but he will also only protect you. This debt of gratitude isn't so deep that he will be willing to protect you to the point of harming the eternal Heaven God realm. However, if you marry the little princess of the glazed light realm, then the entire glazed light realm, this upper star realm that is currently ranked first among all upper star realms, will be your patron. Do you understand now? Xianxia was rooted in place. He did not quite know how to answer Mu Xuanyin. This is indeed meant to make use of the glazed light realm's little princess. However, even though she clearly knows we have such an intention, she is still willing to go along with it wholeheartedly. As she recalled Shui Meiyin's eyes which resembled a pair of black onyxes, Mu Xuanyin's emotions grew complicated for a moment as she said, "Do you understand what I mean?" Xianxia nodded in a rather stupefied manner. "I understand. In regards to the emotional aspect of this, you can slowly cultivate a relationship with her." Mu Xuanyin's eyes faintly slanted as she suddenly gave a cold snort. HMPH for someone like you, a person for whom lasciviousness is second nature, and who loves any and all women, given the charming beauty of the glazed light realm's little princess. I can believe that you don't have any feelings for her, but I definitely won't believe that you don't have any designs on her. Yun Qi's head drooped low. This tone and the implication behind her words, why was it so similar to Jasmine's back then? I will discuss the matter of your engagement with the glazed light realm king during the Eternal Heaven General Assembly, to be held 19 days from now. There's no need to trouble yourself with this, you just need to be obedient and listen. Yun Qi pressed down on the tip of his nose as he said in a small voice, Master, didn't you say before that I was already no longer your disciple? Mu Xuanyin slowly turned around, her absolutely beautiful icy eyes narrowing into long slits as she said, Even if I am not your master, you still need to obediently listen to me. Those two things have nothing to do with each other. Yun Qi could not find a rebuttal to that statement. Huo has been waiting for you over there all this while. He probably has something he wants to say to you. With a single turn, Mu Xuanyin's figure had already disappeared from Yun Qi's sight, and only her voice still rang in the air. After you've resolved this, come and look for me in the sacred hall. Yun Qi had long ago noticed Huo presence, and since everyone else had already left this place, he was the only one who was still waiting there. Yun Qi walked over and Huo also turned around at the same time. The gazes of the two people met before Yun Qi said, Brother Poyun, how are your injuries? Huo laughed as he shook his head and spoke in a nonchalant manner. They've stopped troubling me for a while now, there's no need for you to worry. Brother Yun, I truly find it hard to believe that you're really still alive. Actually, I was also not able to believe that I had survived back then, Yun Qi said with a laugh. He arrived at Huo side as he said in a heartfelt voice, Brother Poyun, congratulations on becoming a divine master. The flame god realm will forever hold you in glory and honor. Huo was not the least bit complacent or arrogant. He merely gave a gentle smile as he said, At least I didn't disappoint Master and the others. I also never imagined that I would actually be able to scale such heights within 3,000 years. Speaking of which, this was not solely due to the Golden Crow Divine Spirit's gift, and the Eternal Heaven Divine Realm's extremely high-grade spiritual energy. It was also because of you. Me, MNN. Huo nodded his head solemnly. Back then, before I entered the Eternal Heaven Divine Realm, if you had not helped me resolve my emotional knots and my inner demons time and time again, the me who would have carried these emotional knots and inner demons into the Eternal Heaven Divine Realm would definitely have run into extremely huge impediments along my path of cultivation. Master also told me that Brother Yun is my great benefactor, that you are also the great benefactor of our flame god realm, and that no amount of recompense would ever clear our debt to you. Heh. Yun Qi chuckled as he shook his head. There's no need for that. At that time, you were the only friend I had in the god realm. No matter whether it was ruthlessly suppressing Junzile in order to help you vent your anger or helping you resolve your inner demons, these are all things that I should have done anyways. So you never ever need to mention the word recompense to me. Huo eyes swiveled as he said, At that time. Yun Qi did not follow his gaze. Instead, he kept staring into the distance, and there was a calm and profound look in his eyes as he said, What's more, a person's mental state and way of thinking will gradually change over time. Even if I had not been there back then, you would have been able to resolve your own emotional knots and inner demons by yourself when you were in the Eternal Heaven Divine Realm. That's right, I guess that. Your relationships with Luo Changsheng and the others shouldn't have been too bad during the 3,000 years all of you spent in the Eternal Heaven Divine Realm. Huo lips parted as his gaze shook violently. If you were able to become a divine master, then the Flame God Realm, which already had a mighty overall strength along with 3 top-level divine sovereigns, would undoubtedly rise up to become an upper star realm, Yun Qi said with a faint smile. And you would also definitely become the supreme ruler of the Flame God Realm in the future. Once you have reached the level of an upper star realm, in order to gain your footing and stabilize your position, it was undoubtedly the most wise and correct choice to build good relationships with those people who would also stand at the top of their realms once they exited the Eternal Heaven Divine Realm, especially someone like Luo Changsheng. To the you whose heart was solely focused on the profound way back then, the you who would grow despondent if you suffered a defeat in a contest of profound strength, the current you has truly been reborn, and this rebirth is far from limited to your cultivation in the profound way. The way you are now, perhaps you already have the qualifications to take responsibility for the future of the Flame God Realm and become the Flame God Realm King. Every single word that came from Yun Qi's lips was a word of acknowledgement and praise. But when Huo Poyun heard those words, the pupils of his eyes started to shake, and after that they had even begun to contract slightly. Yet he could not say a single word even though a long period of time had passed. Yun Qi seemed to have not noticed his incomparably bizarre reaction at all. Instead, he turned around and calmly said, "Master summoned me for some matter, so I will have to take my leave first. Send my regards to Sect Master Huo. If I have some free time in the future, I will definitely pay a visit to the Flame God realm." After saying his piece, Yun Qi did not tarry any longer and began to walk away. "Wait a moment," Huo Poyun's voice rang out behind him. Those 3 short words had been yelled out, and they were accompanied by the sound of Huo Poyun's rough and heavy breathing. Yun Qi's footsteps halted. "It was me. I was the one who sent a sound transmission to Luo Changsheng telling him that you were still alive. It was me." He yelled loudly at Yun Qi's back, his voice trembling. "I know." Yun Qi's expression did not change as he calmly replied. "When we were in Illusory Smoke City, you eavesdropped on the conversation between Mu Feixu and I. Luo Guxi's arrival had been too swift and too sudden. So there was only one possible explanation, and it was that his identity had already been exposed before he returned to the sect. Moreover, before he returned to the sect, the only person who had known of his identity was Mu Feixu. When he had admitted who he was to Mu Feixu, he had not only suppressed his voice as much as he could, he had also used his spiritual perception to sweep the surroundings in order to confirm that no one else was nearby. However, the only possible exception was Huo Poyun himself. For Huo Poyun, who had already become a divine master, evading Yun Qi's spiritual perception was simply far too simple a task. He was not willing to believe this conclusion, but it just so happened to be the only possible conclusion. "Then why did you not expose me?" Huo Poyun exclaimed, his voice growing hoarse. "Are you taking pity on me, or are you simply looking down on me?" "Then what should I have done? Yell and roar hysterically like you are doing right now?" Yun Qi's expression and tone still remained extremely calm. It was as if he was talking about someone else's business. Huo Poyun took a single step forward, his hands knotted into fists, his face distorted by pain. "Luo Guxi is the person who wants to kill you the most. The entire Eastern Divine region knows this. I told Luo Changsheng so that Luo Guxi would come and kill you. Do you understand? Do you? And you're letting me off just like that. Your master is so powerful that she can even defeat the likes of Luo Guxi, that she would even dare to kill Luo Guxi. With a single word from you, she could easily cripple me. Kill you? Why did you? His voice was becoming increasingly hoarse, and towards the end, he had gritted his teeth so hard that they were about to crack. 2 trails of tears actually flowed down his face as he spoke. He slowly sank to the snowy ground, his body trembling in an incomparably violent manner. When he spoke, his words came out in a garbled murmur. "When I became a divine master back then, the first person I wanted to tell this news to wasn't master. It was you. Yet what I obtained was the news of your death. I had never felt as grieved as I felt in that moment. But why are you still alive? And why did you return? Why?" Yun Qi let out a long breath before he spoke in a low voice. "The reason why I did not expose you in front of everyone was because I know that when a person's heart and emotions are thrown into extreme chaos, they will do things that are completely irrational, things that they dare not believe that they had done afterwards. The reason you came to the Snow Song realm was because you regretted your actions. When Luo Guxi suddenly launched her attack against me, the reason why you protected me with your life was partly because of guilt, but it was also because you truly wanted to. Also, the most important reason is that," Yun Qi said as he closed his eyes, "you were previously the only friend I had in the God realm." Huo Poyun lowered his head as a cold and bleak laugh leaked from his mouth. Friend, he. Have you ever truly regarded me as your friend?" Yun Qi's eyebrows furrowed when he heard those words. "Back then in the Eternal Heaven realm, when I was attracted to Mu Feixu, do you still remember the words you said to comfort me?" Yun Qi. "Yet." Huo Poyun raised his head, his breathing growing rougher and heavier by the second. "Yet, I personally heard from a discussion between 2 Ice Phoenix disciples that she had long ago been given to you by your master as a dual cultivation partner. That was something that I personally heard. Yet you did not mention a single word of this to me. You only gave me your insincere consolation. You were basically seeing my joke play out." Yun Qi turned around. His brows were deeply furrowed as he spoke. "Listen, after I had just finished the ceremony of taking her as my master back then, Master did indeed nominate Feixu to be my dual cultivation partner, and she even announced it in front of everyone. However, I rejected it after that, and Master consented to my decision as well. A shudder went through Huo Poyun's entire body, his eyes growing blank. But because Master had announced this thing in front of everyone, if she were to then announce publicly that I had rejected Mu Feixu, it would have undoubtedly led to Mu Feixu being ridiculed by others. As a result, this was not announced to the public. But Feixu and I never had a relationship as dual cultivation partners, and the amount of time I spent interacting with her during the years I spent in the Snow Song realm did not even amount to the few words exchanged between us in the illusory Smoke City. If you don't believe me, you can go straight to my master and ask for proof right now. Huo Poyun stood there completely rooted in place. It was as if he had been struck by a thunderbolt. He had gone completely silent, and it was as if he had lost his very soul. It's fine. Yun Qi turned around and did not spare him another look. Whether you believe it or not is up to you. This is no longer something important to me. Also, this is the last time I will call you Brother Poyun. His steps were heavy as he left without turning his head back. Young Sect Master Hu, see you some other time. Qi did not immediately go to find Mu Xuanyin. He stood amidst the flying snow as he raised his head towards the sky. His heart felt as if it was being weighed down by a great weight, and he was not able to breathe for a long while. The calmness and indifference that he had when he had faced Huo Poyun were no longer present. His life in the Azure Cloud continent had greatly influenced his nature and temperament. Because of Su Linger's death, he was willing to cherish and protect the women who were good to him at all costs. It was also because he had been enemies with the entire world in that life that it was extremely rare for him to truly accept and trust a person. As a result, he had very few friends. In the lower realms, the only people he truly regarded as friends were Xia Yuanba and Ling Jai. In the God realm, the only person was Huo Poyun. The good feelings he had for Huo Poyun were initially because of his Golden Crow legacy. This was because the Golden Crow divine spirit had done him many great favors in the past, and had done so even to the point of dissipating itself. Yet he had been unable to repay a single one of them. On the other hand, if one's character was dishonorable, it would definitely not be possible to obtain the God realm's Golden Crow divine spirit's complete inheritance. As a result, Huo Poyun was the only person Yun Qi did not guard against initially after he had entered the God realm. They got to know each other through battle, and from the Snow Song realm to the Flame God realm, they had always been appreciative of the other's talent and had continued to help one another. After that, they both entered the Eternal Heaven realm, and after that, Yun Qi shook his head several times as he forced himself to not think about those things anymore. He had felt Huo Poyun's regret and remorse. He had personally witnessed Huo Poyun throwing himself in front of him at the last possible moment when he faced Luo Guxi's power. He also believed that even though Huo Poyun had changed greatly, his base character still had not changed in the end, however. What was done was done. There was no way to turn back, no way to correct it. Whether he had collapsed or he had lost his mind, when he had sent a sound transmission to Luo Changsheng, Huo Poyun, at the very least, had wanted him to die. This was a scar that could never be erased. It seemed as if Yun Qi's reaction to all of this had been very mild. But in reality, the impact this series of events had on Yun Qi was far greater than what it looked like on the surface. Mu Feixu drew near to him on silent footsteps. Upon seeing Yun Qi's rather dispirited look, her lips lightly moved, but in the end, she did not ask him anything. She merely said in a mild tone, "Senior brother Yun, Master is waiting for you." "Hey, I got it." Yun Qi came back to his senses as he gave a small nod of his head. He took 2 steps forward before he suddenly stopped and said to Mu Feixu, "Junior sister Feixu you?" Mu Feixu. Yun Qi stopped speaking, and after his expression went through a series of changes, he instead smiled as he shook his head and said, "It's nothing, I'll go see Master now." Mu Feixu stood in place as she silently watched his back grow small in the distance. As her eyes blurred, she suddenly recalled the words that Mu Bingyun had said to her once more. As he expelled a mouthful of turbid energy, Yun Qi steeled his heart and stepped into the Ice Phoenix Sacred Hall. After that, he arrived in front of Mu Xuanyin and said, "Master." Mu Xuanyin's heart was like a clear mirror, but she did not ask about the matter concerning Huo Poyun. Instead, she directly said, "Just now you asked me about how Xia Qingyu became the Moon God Emperor. But before I tell you all the answers, you better prepare yourself first and not let me see an overly ugly scene." Upon hearing Mu Xuanyin's words, Yun Qi's heartstrings could not help but tighten up as he asked, So what exactly did happen? The previous moon god Emperor Yue Wuya died 3 years ago. Mu Xuanyin calmly pronounced a fact that was known to the entire god realm. He's dead. Even though he had a faint feeling that this had happened, a great shock ran through Xianxia's heart upon hearing it from Mu Xuanyin herself. He asked, how did he die? Does a power that can kill a god emperor truly exist in this universe? Back then, Xia Qingyu had told him when they were aboard the Vanishing Moon's celestial palace that Yue Wuya had received a heavenly prophecy telling him that he was sure to die within 5 years. The wedding that was meant to trick everyone under heaven was one of the arrangements he had made, and it was part of his final wishes. Even though Yue Wuya placed a great amount of faith in this prophecy, Xianxia had thumbed his nose at it. But he had actually really died. It was not only Yue Wuya. Mu Xuanyin continued. On the same day, many star gods, moon gods, guardians, and Brahma kings fell one after the other. Even the star god emperor, eternal heaven god emperor, and the Brahma heaven god emperor sustained serious injuries. The events of that day are also the reason why the eternal heaven god emperor was being tormented by devilish energy. Xianxia was completely dumbstruck by her words, but the one who suffered most terribly was the star god realm itself. Nearly the entire realm was destroyed, and the remaining star gods and elders are all presently residing in their auxiliary star realms. In other words, the current star god realm could be said to be alive in name only. Does such a power truly exist in this universe? Every single word that rang in Xianxia's ear filled him with great shock. If he had not heard these words from Mu Xuanyin herself, he definitely would not be able to bring himself to believe them. He asked, could it have been something to do with the Crimson Calamity? No, it had nothing to do with the Crimson Calamity at all, Mu Xuanyin said as she stared straight at him. It actually has something to do with you. Me? Xianxia pointed a finger at himself, a stunned expression on his face. Even if he had 100 more brains, he would not be able to think of how this outrageous and unimaginable event had anything to do with him. Do you know the identity of the culprit who destroyed the star god realm, killed the moon god emperor, heavily wounded the other 3 god emperors, and killed several moon gods and star gods? The eternal heaven god emperor seemed to have mentioned it before. He said that the devilish energy that was circulating in his body had come from the evil infant, Xianxia said as he thought about it. And do you know who this evil infant is? Xianxia shook his head as he said, they possess such dreadful power and they are using darkness profound energy at that. Could it be that an extremely dreadful devil suddenly emerged out of the northern divine region? No, it has nothing to do with the northern divine region, Mu Xuanyin said as her voice grew deeper. When you hear the words evil infant, what do you think of? Evil infant. Xianxia's brows furrowed as he pondered the question. After that, a terrifying name suddenly flashed through his mind as he blurted out, the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations. No matter how little knowledge he had, there was no way he would not know the name of the world-destroying devil wheel. You're exactly right, Mu Xuanyin said as her eyes narrowed slightly. It was as if she was trying to see something from the look in his eyes. She continued, what killed the moon god emperor, destroyed the star god realm, and cast a dreadful shadow over the entire eastern divine region was the power of the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations. Moreover, the person who possesses the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations will naturally also become the embodiment of the evil infant. However, from the way you look, it really seems like you are completely in the dark about this. Xianxia shook his head in bewilderment. He was undoubtedly the person who was closest to Jasmine, the person who had spent the most time with Jasmine. But he was indeed completely unaware of the fact that Jasmine possessed the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations. Jasmine had never told him and had never intended to let anyone find out in the first place. Since this is the case, then let me tell you the frank truth, Mu Xuanyin said without elaborating any further. The one who controls the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulation, the evil infant, that the eternal heaven god emperor spoke of, is precisely the heavenly slaughter star god. Those 4 earth-shattering words made Xianxia feel as if he had been struck directly in the face by a heavy hammer. His eyes instantly widened, and he was left completely stunned for 2 full breaths before he asked a question that would sound ridiculous to anyone else. Which heavenly slaughter star god? There's no need for any self-denial or doubt. It is precisely the person that has appeared in your mind's eye, that person that you had long ago determined was dead. Xianxia. As she looked at Xianxia's face, a face that had become completely expressionless, Mu Xuanyin already knew what he was thinking without even having to try. She continued, "She did not die 3 years ago. Instead, she awakened the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations that had been in her possession after your death, transforming into the evil infant, and burying the star god realm which sought to take her life in a hell of destruction." Xianxia simply stood there dumbly, and he felt as if millions of gongs and thunderclaps were going off in his head. He had practically been robbed of the ability to think. He was in this condition for a long time, and it was only a full 10 breaths later that he finally managed to speak with much difficulty. "Jasmine, she is still alive." He had croaked out those words with incredible difficulty, and something seemed to be flashing through his eyes. It was as if he was sleep-talking. What evil infant? What star god realm? All of this wasn't important anymore. The only piece of news that was crazily churning in his mind was that Jasmine was not dead. When he had followed Mu Bingyun to the god realm all those years ago, everyone close to him had known that he was going to the god realm to find Jasmine. But during the 3 years after he had returned to the lower realms, besides the time when he had reunited with Chu Yuechen, he had never mentioned anything about Jasmine even once. That was because it was a name he did not dare to touch again. It was akin to pricking the innermost parts of his soul. Even the slightest of touches felt like a thorn prick that was so painful that he wished for death instead. This was a thorn that he never wished to pull out, even if it was 10 or even 100 times more painful. Even though he had died before Jasmine, and as a result, he had not witnessed the sacrificial ceremony being carried out or the scene of Jasmine and Keijai dying. In his mind, Jasmine's and Keijai's deaths had been a foregone conclusion, a barrier and ceremony that had been formed by the strongest powers in the star god realm. There was no way any power could have changed the outcome of that situation. There wasn't even the slightest possibility. "She's still alive, she's still alive, she's still alive." Xianxia's pupils trembled and the corner of his mouth twitched. He was simply completely dispirited and lost at one moment, and he seemed to be in a complete fluster the next. After that, he cried out involuntarily, "Jasmine, is she really still alive?" As she observed that extremely unsightly reaction of his, Mu Xuanyin's brow furrowed. She was just about to reprimand him, but before the words even left her lips, she felt an inexplicable pain in her heart. In the end, she did not scold him, and on the contrary, her voice had grown slightly softer when she finally spoke. "That's right, she's still alive." As he clearly heard Mu Xuanyin's confirmation, Xianxia's body swayed, and as his body rocked backwards, he nearly fell to the ground. He raised a hand and fiercely gripped his own skull. The sensations of pain that were coming from his tightening fingers clearly told him that he was not dreaming. "Jasmine is still alive, Jasmine, ah ha 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 ha." He muttered to himself as he shook his head and giggled inanely. "That's right, she's definitely still alive. Surely the heavens would not be so cruel to her. Even someone like me who deserves to go to hell is still alive. I should have long realized that she was definitely still alive." Anybody would know what the heavenly slaughter star god meant to Xianxia just by seeing his reaction at this moment. Mu Xuanyin coldly said, "So now that you know she is still alive, what are you going to do?" Xianxia slowly raised his head as he regulated his terribly disordered breathing and emotions. He strove to calm himself down, but all of the blood in his body was still surging in an incomparably crazy manner. "Master, where is she right now?" "Nobody knows where she is," Mu Xuanyin said. "However, there are rumors that say that it is most likely that she is in the god realm of absolute beginning." "The god realm of absolute beginning." Xianxia softly breathed out those words. That was a name that had left an extremely deep shadow in his soul, because it was in that place where Qianai Yinger had afflicted him with the Braham soul death-wishing mark. "Even if you knew where she is, what can you do about it? Could it be that you're prepared to go and look for her?" Mu Xuanyin's voice grew cold as a formless cold energy encased Xianxia, freezing his frenzied aura. His mind also became much clearer after that. She continued, "At the same time as you process that she's still alive, you better use your brain to think about what her current situation is." Xianxia's gaze froze for a moment, but after that, he shook his head and said, "It's fine. To me, as long as she is still alive, then that is already the best news that I could have heard. Everything else is unimportant." "How naive," Mu Xuanyin said with a cold snort. "Right now, she isn't considered the heavenly slaughter star god in the eyes of the world anymore. She's thought of as the evil infant. The evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations is the world-destroying devil wheel, and the evil infant is the most dreadful world-destroying devil spirit that exists in this universe. It was also the one that caused the end of the era of the gods. On the very first day the evil infant re-emerged, it killed a god emperor and destroyed a king realm. Can you imagine just how dark and dreadful a shadow it casts on the entire god realm? Xianxia. The god realm is most repulsed by darkness profound energy, and the power of the evil infant is the ultimate form of darkness profound energy. Coupled with the dark and dreadful shadow she cast over the current universe, every day that she is still alive is a day that all of the divine regions can't rest easy. During the past 3 years, all of the king realms in the 3 divine regions have been mobilized, and they have even called on the upper, middle, and lower star realms to comb through different star regions. They did not even hesitate to extend the parameters of their search to the lower realms. All of this was for the sake of catching the evil infant's tail. Once they find her, they will mobilize in force and seek to root out and eradicate the evil infant. In other words, right now, she is enemies with the entire world. Do you understand the meaning of these words? Jasmine's current situation. Furthermore, because she had become the embodiment of the evil infant, this situation would never ever change, and it would be like this until her death. When he'd suddenly heard that Jasmine was alive, Xianxia had undoubtedly become so emotional and ecstatic that he had thought that he was dreaming. But those few short words that Mu Xuanyin just uttered had instantly covered up the enormous joy and surprise that he felt in his heart with an extremely gloomy shadow. His joy and surprise died down little by little, and Xianxia exhaled deeply after that. When he finally spoke, it sounded like he was muttering to himself as he asked, "Jasmine, how did she become the evil infant? How did it? Were you truly completely unaware that she possessed the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations?" Mu Xuanyin asked. Xianxia shook his head. He had been completely unaware. In fact, he did not have the slightest clue. He said, "Master, you previously said that it was because of me?" "Yes," Mu Xuanyin said as her eyebrows slightly scrunched up. Besides the people from the star god realm, she was the only person in the universe who knew the exact reason for the birth of the evil infant. The evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations was the artifact that possessed the most extreme and dreadful negative energies in the universe. Thus, anyone would be able to surmise that in order for it to be awoken, there needed to be a negative energy that had been amplified by several magnitudes. Initially, even though she and Keijai were both going to become sacrifices, the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations had not even stirred, so the situation only changed dramatically after Xianxia's death. Even though she had not personally borne witness to it, the moment Mu Xuanyin heard the news, she almost immediately understood the reason for the evil infant's reemergence. It's obvious that the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations had long ago fallen into her possession, Mu Xuanyin said in a measured voice. But not a single trace of the evil infant or its aura had been leaked to the outside world. That is also to say that the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations had originally been in a state of complete dormancy. But after you died, the power of the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations awoke, and she also transformed into the evil infant. Why do you think that happened? Xianxia stood frozen in place. He once again looked as if his soul had left his body, and he remained in that state for a long period of time. After that, he closed his eyes. His entire body was trembling faintly as he tightly clenched his hands. Since she destroyed the star god realm back then, the evil infant has yet to appear again. All of the king realms in the 3 divine regions completely mobilized, and they even rallied countless star realms to aid in their search. Yet they were ultimately unable to find any clear traces of her. So do you think that you, with your powers, can find her? Mu Xuanyin said in an ice-cold voice. Even if you can find her, the current her has already become the evil infant, and she is now a devil god that is more terrifying than any devil. If you manage to get close to her, do you know what the consequences will be? At that time, there will be no place under heaven that will even give you a foot to stand on. Xianxia. The people of the star god realm did not expose the relationship that you and she had to anyone else, but that was because they did not dare to. That sacrificial ceremony was something that went against the laws of heaven and the precepts of society in the first place. If anyone were to discover that they were the ones who had forced the evil infant to emerge, they would become sinners denounced by the entire universe, and the other king realms would definitely salivate at the chance to break their bones and scatter their ashes. So if you are asked about the reason you went to the star god realm back then, you definitely must not mention that it had anything to do with her. The current you definitely won't be able to find her, and the further you are from her, the better it is. Furthermore, If her soul has not been completely hijacked, and the will of the heavenly slaughter star god still remains, she herself will surely not allow you to find her. Mu Xuanyin had said many things, and given him many warnings. This was because she understood Xianxia far too well, and she understood even better that Xianxia could abandon everything for the sake of Jasmine. She had no choice but to warn him again and again. Xianxia opened his eyes before speaking in a slow but resolute voice. "I will definitely find her, I definitely will." Mu Xuanyin's eyebrows tightly knit together. "However, it won't be now. The current me has no right to look for her," Xianxia continued. He seemed to have calmed down, and at the very least his gaze was not trembling so violently anymore. He said, "She's still alive, and to me that is already an enormous blessing. As for the rest, no matter if she is the evil infant, no matter if the entire world becomes my enemy, no matter how much resistance I face, at the very least, I will still be able to see her." Mu Xuanyin could hear the resoluteness in his voice, and she could also hear the bleakness in his voice. Reuniting with Jasmine had always been such a monumentally difficult task. They were separated by planes, separated by life and death. And even after they had stepped across it all, the greatest obstructing force in the universe had been shoved between them. Mu Xuanyin was already unable to say anything else. As she faced a Xianxia who could resolutely choose to die together with Jasmine, she knew that any and all advice regarding this matter was useless. He would ultimately march to the beat of his own drum. She turned around and said, "I've said everything that needed to be said. As for what you should do in the future regarding the matter of the glazed light realm's little princess and the matter of the heavenly slaughter star god, give it some proper thought. The heavenly Netherfrost lake has already been opened. If you want to enter it, you can do so at any time. Yes, this disciple will take his leave first." Xianxia turned around and he left on swift footsteps, but the moment he stepped out of the sacred hall, he stopped again and asked, "Master Xianxia, the heavenly wolf star god, is she?" "She is also still alive, and we can confirm that she is in the god realm of absolute beginning," Mu Xuanyin said with an expressionless face. As he walked out of the sacred hall and stood in the midst of the snowstorm, Xianxia's heart was filled with boundless indecision. He had been determined when he had returned to the god realm, but today was only the second day, and all the things that had happened so suddenly and all at once made him to feel as if the entire world had changed. Luo Guxi, Hu Poyan, and even the Crimson Calamity, at this moment, all of these things were flung to the back of his head, and the only thing that filled his heart and soul was the image of Jasmine. She's still alive. Evil infant. Evil infant. Because of me, she became the evil infant. No, you're still alive, and that's the most wonderful thing in the world. What devil, what evil infant, none of it is important. Initially, you had promised me that if there was a next life, we would surely meet again. But now, our lives have not ended yet, so there is no need for a next life. I will find you no matter what. After bathing in the cold wind for a long period of time, Xianxia's emotions gradually grew steadier and more rational. He knew that Jasmine must be aware that he was still alive, because Jasmine had known from a very long time ago that the Phoenix spirit had bestowed the flames of nirvana upon him. Even if she had not remembered it back then, it surely would have occurred to her at some point of time. There was also Xianxia. He was unable to imagine just how dramatically changed and distorted her heart, soul, and personality had become after she went through all of that, especially since Jasmine had already told him that she originally had a deep abyss in her heart, in the first place. Xianxia shook his head as he gazed towards the north, where the heavenly Netherfrost lake was located. Right now, he needed power, no matter what the method or the means of obtaining it. Since he had already set his mind to it, he took to the air and flew to where the heavenly Netherfrost lake was located. Upon arriving at the heavenly Netherfrost lake, the barrier surrounding it directly opened up after a slight push of his mind. During the years he had spent in the Snow Song realm, he had spent the most time in the heavenly Netherfrost lake, and the person who he had spent the most time with was Mu Xuanyin. When he entered the area around the heavenly lake again, he saw icy lights gleaming in the air as ice spirits danced and frolicked. Everything was exactly the same as he remembered. Xianxia first pushed down all of the thoughts that were raging inside his head before he took in a small and slow breath and jumped into the heavenly lake, diving straight to the bottom. Compared to his unhurried and cautious approach the first few times, he swam straight to the bottom at full speed, diving to the bottom of the lake. His feet soon came into contact with powdery sand, but he felt like he had stepped onto a layer of crystal. That bright arc of deep blue light had also appeared in his vision. This was the third time he had arrived at the bottom of the lake. As he followed that arc of blue light, Xianxia quickly strode forward. The rhombus-shaped ice crystal that sparkled with a pure and translucent light then quickly appeared in this azure world. The dreamlike figure of a young girl lay curled up inside that ice crystal. Her jade arms hugged her knees as she buried her delicate head between her legs. Her body was completely bare, her long and limber snowy legs shining with a white luster. Her jade feet were as small and delicate as lotuses. The snowy skin on her body looked as smooth as jade and cream, as it glowed with a brilliance that resembled the radiance of the moon and the stars. Icy hair streaked with light blue highlights glowed with a white luster as it softly scattered down over her body, covering her face and also covering the most forbidden parts of the girl's body. "Xianxia, you finally come?" A young girl's voice rang in his heart, sounding as soft and gentle as water, as ephemeral as a dream. Xianxia strode forward and stopped only a few steps away from the girl, where he could see every corner of her jade-like and snowy body. He said, "Ice Phoenix Divine Spirit, it's been a long time. Back then you told me that, when the world is engulfed in that crimson-colored despair, I definitely needed to come here and find you. At that time, I was completely clueless as to what you were saying. But today, the current situation, the Eastern Divine Region, is extremely similar to the crimson-colored despair that you spoke of. That is why I'm here." "Does this mean that you've already gained enough understanding?" she said softly. "Yes," Xianxia said as he slowly nodded his head. "Since I have returned to the God realm and arrived in this place, I have already made sufficient preparations and gained enough understanding of the situation. The duty that you spoke of back then, I will no longer question its validity or try to flee from it any longer." "Good. Then I will tell you the truth behind this crimson calamity, and I will also tell you about that sliver of hope that has been entrusted to you. The speed at which this calamity is bearing down on us is simply far too quick. It is pressing in so quickly that even I have been caught unawares. So no matter whether you are prepared or not, it has come to a point where I need to tell you regardless. I am so thankful that you've come here before it's too late." Xianxia sucked in a small breath, his expression solemn as he said, "I want to confirm something once more. The crimson-colored despair that you spoke of, is it referring to that crack in the easternmost part of the primal chaos?" "Yes," the Ice Phoenix Divine Spirit replied. Xianxia's eyebrows twitched as he said, "Right now, the entire Eastern Divine Region is gathering up its power and they are preparing to deal with the crimson calamity that might erupt at any moment. Given the power of the Eastern Divine Region, is there any possibility that it can withstand this calamity?" The Ice Phoenix Divine Spirit gave a gloomy sigh as it said, "Back then, I mentioned more than once that you were the only hope. And when I said only, I absolutely meant only. Only you, the person who has inherited the evil god divine power, has any chance of resolving this calamity. Given the current strength of the divine region, even if they were 10 times stronger than they are today, they still wouldn't stand the slightest chance. This is also the reason why the evil god was willing to leave behind this glimmer of hope all those years ago, even at the cost of shortening his own life. The only hope, and it really was only, for all intents and purposes. A calamity that the Eastern Divine Region would not be able to deal with even if they were 10 times stronger. The heaviness that abruptly appeared in his heart swiftly dissolved into nothingness. Xianxia nodded his head and said, "All right, I understand. Please tell me exactly what this calamity is, and what exactly my role is in all of this." Every millimeter of space at the bottom of the heavenly Netherfrost Lake was extremely cold. The Ice Phoenix girl, the only ancient divine spirit that remained in this world, slowly began to narrate her story. At the beginning of the primal chaos, before the ancestral god dissipated, she left behind an ancestral divine art and split it into 3 before scattering the 3 parts into the universe. One of those parts ended up in the hands of one of the 4 devil emperors of the devil race, the heaven-smiting devil emperor. And in the ancient era of the gods, the beginning of that calamity, heaven-punishing divine emperor Mu used another part of the ancestral divine art as bait to lure the heaven-smiting devil emperor to him, using the pretext of comprehending the ancestral divine art together. Following that, he used the heaven-punishing ancestral sword to split open the wall of primal chaos, throwing that devil emperor and all of the devil gods that accompanied her outside of the primal chaos. Xianxia quietly listened to her tale. He had long been aware of what she was telling him, and even some of the ancient books and records left behind from the era of the gods had recorded the event as well. It was something widely known to even the current god realm. The first to tell him about this was the Golden Crow spirit that had dwelled in Golden Crow Lightning Flame Valley. At that time, the Golden Crow spirit had told him that heaven-punishing divine Emperor Mo, who was incredibly upright and had an extreme hatred for evil, thought that the devils who used negative, profound energy were evil and sinful existences. Furthermore, the fragments of the ancestral divine art had been left behind by the ancestral god at the beginning of the primal chaos, and they definitely couldn't fall into the hands of the devil race, which was why he used this method to take it away by force. But after he had met the Ice Phoenix girl, she had told him another truth, and that was a truth that very few people knew even back in the ancient era of the gods. Heaven-punishing divine Emperor Mo had not hesitated to use the heaven-punishing ancestral sword, had not even hesitated to use a despicable scheme, just for the sake of killing the heaven-smiting devil emperor. And the main reason for this was absolutely not for the sake of obtaining another fragment of the ancestral divine arts. The main reason was that the evil god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor had secretly fallen in love with each other and had become husband and wife. And an even greater reason for his actions was the fact that they had had a forbidden child together. The upright heaven-punishing divine Emperor Mo, who hated evil and could not coexist with the devil race at all, would certainly be unable to tolerate a god. And it was a creation god who had actually fallen in love with a devil emperor at that, and they'd even had a child together. In his eyes, this was definitely the greatest shame of the god race, and this shame could only truly be expunged if the heaven-smiting devil emperor disappeared forever. This was the actual truth behind why he had used the ancestral sword to split open the wall of primal chaos, banishing the heaven-smiting devil emperor and her retinue of devil gods outside the primal chaos realm. According to the words the Ice Phoenix girl had previously said, this was a secret that could not be made known to the world, and amongst the ancient god race, only the 4 great creation gods knew of this secret. It was only because the Ice Phoenix girl had personally attended to the creation goddess of life that she had coincidentally stumbled upon part of the truth. This matter is the origin of this current crimson calamity. At that time, heaven-punishing divine Emperor Mo would never have imagined that the sword stroke he had used to banish the heaven-smiting devil emperor and 900 devil gods, the act he had accomplished by breaking open the wall of primal chaos, would end up leaving such a ticking time bomb for future generations. Those words struck Xianxia dumb. The heaven-punishing god emperor had banished the heaven-smiting devil emperor, and that was the origin of the crimson calamity. He racked his brains over this, using all of the knowledge and imagination he had accrued over 2 lifetimes, but he was still unable to understand the meaning of those words. How could the events that happened in the previous era drag on until this day? What exactly is going on with the crimson crack? Xianxia asked with sunken brows. The Ice Phoenix girl replied, in the latter stages of the terrible war between the gods and devils, due to the fact that they were losing ground step by step, the devil-god race lost their minds and brought out the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations. The evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations, which had been sealed away for a very long time, seized control of the eternal night devil sovereign due to its boundless rage and resentment. It then used the sky poison pearl as a medium to release the poison known as the myriad tribulations, which ultimately brought about the destruction of the god and devil races, making it so that there were no longer any true gods or true devils in the primal chaos realm. However, there was a group of devils who managed to escape this apocalyptic calamity, and those were the members of the heaven-smiting devil clan that had been banished outside the primal chaos, along with heaven-smiting devil emperor Xianxia. As a result, they survived. They have even managed to survive until this very day, and they have always wanted to return to the primal chaos realm. These soft and gentle words that the Ice Phoenix girl had just spoken exploded in Xianxia's ear like thousands of thunderclaps. Xianxia was rendered completely and utterly stunned by what he had just heard. After that, he shook his head as quick as lightning as he said, That's not right. Even though my knowledge is shallow, I also know that the world outside of the primal chaos is a world of death and destruction. The moment someone is flung outside the primal chaos, the only outcome is for them to dissolve into nothingness. So how could they still be alive? Could it be that the rumors were wrong? No, the Ice Phoenix girl said in a slow and measured voice. The place outside the primal chaos is indeed a world of destruction. Even beings as strong as the creation gods or devil emperors would also die before too long if they were blasted outside of the primal chaos. As a result, to the knowledge of the gods and devils who existed back then, the heaven-smiting devil emperor and the devil gods who had been banished outside the primal chaos all died a long time ago. Then how did it? Xianxia said with a bewildered look on his face. However, in this universe, there indeed exists a treasure that can allow someone to survive outside of the primal chaos for a long period of time. The treasure I am talking about is the treasure that was ranked 6th amongst the 7 great heavenly profound treasures, the World Piercer. The World Piercer possessed the strongest, highest level and extreme form of spatial power. It could easily open up dimensional spaces and travel through dimensions. It was so powerful that it could simply create a dimensional space from nothing, without having to use any sort of medium. Xianxia had long ago heard the name of the World Piercer. However, he had only heard of its name. He had not heard any news of its whereabouts or any rumors regarding it. He only knew that the most powerful spatial item in the current universe, the Void Illusion Stone, was an object that contained an extremely small amount of the World Piercer's power. So Xianxia definitely would not be able to imagine or understand just how strong the spatial power the World Piercer itself possessed, especially its ability to create space from nothing. If the people of today were to hear of that power, they would think it was the most fantastical and mystical power they had ever heard of. The World Piercer can create space from nothing, so it should be possible for it to open an independent space swiftly between the gaps of the void. As long as that space is maintained, then not even the destructive power beyond primal chaos will be able to harm those on the inside. The problem is, no one knew that the World Piercer was with the heaven-smiting devil emperor. It was a secret even after the heaven-punishing god emperor had passed away, and both gods and devils had become extinct. The climaxes kept coming one after another. Xianxia frowned deeply as he asked in a low tone, "The heavenly profound treasure's whereabouts should be one of the gods' greatest concerns, shouldn't they? How could no one know that the World Piercer is with the heaven-smiting devil emperor?" "It's because the World Piercer already belonged to someone since a long time ago, a certain someone who's famous throughout primal chaos. Can you guess who the original owner of the World Piercer was, Xianxia?" asked the Ice Phoenix girl. Xianxia shook his head in response. 4 out of 7 of the heavenly profound treasures were in the god race's possession back during the era of gods, and each one of the 4 creation gods possessed one heavenly profound treasure. The leader of the creation gods, Lord Mo-E, possessed the heaven-punishing ancestral sword. The creation god of order, Lord Zai-Ki, possessed the eternal heaven pearl. The creation goddess of life, Lord Li Suo, possessed the primordial seal of life and death. And finally, the creation god of the elements, who was later known as the evil god, possessed the World Piercer. "You're saying that the evil god had gifted the World Piercer to the heaven-smiting devil emperor?" Xianxia muttered in disbelief, as he did his best to digest the terrifying information he had just gotten. This information and the possibility that was on the verge of being revealed along with it was truly scary beyond belief. That's right. At the time, he was still known as the creation god of the elements, not the evil god. Now that you know that he had fallen in love and even married the heaven-smiting devil emperor, it no longer seems like a surprise to hear that he would gift the heaven-smiting devil emperor the World Piercer, does it? He clearly loved the heaven-smiting devil emperor deeply, and the World Piercer is the greatest talisman in the entire world thanks to its pinnacle-level spatial divine power. That is why he had decided to give it to her as a gift. Perhaps it was a token of love, or perhaps it was even a token of their marriage. Or perhaps it had just been given to her purely for the sake of allowing her to protect herself from any sort of danger. Xianxia. Furthermore, besides the evil god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor, nobody else had been aware of this matter. Even the creation gods of the god race or the devil emperors of the devil race, none of them were aware of this, and none of them could even have imagined that this sort of thing would happen. In fact, until the end of the era of gods, no one had been aware of this. Then how did you find out about this?" Xianxia blurted out without thinking. "Because the aura that is spreading out from that crack in the wall of primal chaos belongs to the World Piercer, and it is growing stronger and clearer with each passing day. The wall of primal chaos is something that even the creation gods are unable to blast open. However, there are 3 things that can smash aside the wall of primal chaos. The first 2 are the heaven-punishing ancestral sword and the evil infant's wheel of myriad tribulations. The reason they can break open the wall of primal chaos is because their power is of a very high order. The last thing that can break open the wall of primal chaos is the World Piercer itself. Even though the World Piercer does not possess any destructive power, at its core, the wall of primal chaos is basically an extremely strong spatial barrier. Given the ultimate spatial power possessed by the World Piercer, it can definitely interfere the wall of primal chaos. The original divine light given off by the World Piercer was also crimson in color. Xianxia was stunned silly, and it was as if he had been turned to stone. The words that the Ice Phoenix girl had said were undoubtedly telling him that the crack in the wall of primal chaos and that crimson light both originated from the World Piercer. The World Piercer was not in the primal chaos, but outside of it, and the only possible explanation was that it had been banished together with the heaven-smiting devil emperor all those years ago. Thus, the person who was controlling the World Piercer, the one who desired to break open the wall of primal chaos, could only be the heaven-smiting devil emperor who had been banished all those years ago. Before he had entered the heavenly Netherfrost Lake, he had already been prepared to hear any sort of truth, no matter how horrifying. However, he would never have imagined that it was actually this horrific. The Ice Phoenix girl continued recounting her tale in a slow and measured voice. Back then, after the heaven-smiting devil emperor and a bunch of devil gods had been banished outside the primal chaos, the heaven-smiting devil emperor must have immediately activated the power of the World Piercer. The World Piercer would not be able to pierce through the wall of primal chaos, but it could open an independent space in the area outside the primal chaos. From that moment on, she and those devil gods continued to live on in that independent space established outside the primal chaos. While they lived outside the primal chaos, the heaven-smiting devil emperor and her kinsmen were definitely doing their utmost to return to the primal chaos realm, and after a few million years, they finally came into contact with the wall of primal chaos once more, or perhaps, they managed to open up some strange connection between the independent space that they lived in and the wall of primal chaos. Or perhaps they managed to successfully graft their independent space onto the side of the wall of primal chaos that faced outwards. After that, they once again used the power of World Piercer to devour the spatial power within the wall of primal chaos, gradually tearing open a crack that is growing bigger and bigger. And once this crack had grown large enough, a gap will once again appear in the wall of primal chaos. And then once the heaven-smiting devil emperor and her devil gods make their return to the primal chaos. However, what they will not have known is that all of the other gods and devils have already been completely wiped out 1,000,000 years ago. And the current primal chaos is a world without gods and devils. Back then, they had been banished by the heaven-punishing divine emperor, but it was also due to this freak incident that they managed to escape the ultimate destruction that befell their race. Xianxia remained motionless for a very long time. He did not say a single word, because there was nothing he could say in the first place. Everything the Ice Phoenix girl had said had been guesses, but it was as if there was a voice telling him from the depths of his soul that all of this was true, all of this was really happening. The crimson light coming from the wall of primal chaos had come from the spatial power of the World Piercer. And what lay behind that crack in the primal chaos were actually devils from the ancient era, devils who should have died out long ago. What did the reemergence of a true god or a true devil in this current world mean? The power of the gods had stopped existing in this universe a long time ago, and the universe had long ago atrophied to the point where it could no longer endure that sort of power. It had also reached the point where it was no longer able to produce any power on the level of the gods. So if such a power were to suddenly reappear, then the entire primal chaos would be at the mercy of that power. No living being or power could resist such a power, and as long as the wielder of that power so desired, they could enslave all living beings or wipe them all out, and no one would be able to resist them. What was even more terrifying than this was that there would be more than one of those devils out there. What was even more terrifying than that was that the heaven-smiting devil emperor herself was no ordinary devil. Rather, she was a devil emperor who was at the same level as the creation gods. Even if the other devil gods had died long ago outside of the primal chaos, and only the heaven-smiting devil emperor herself was left, if she returned to the present world. Even if there were 10 or 100 of the current god realm, there was no way for them to put up a fight, much less the eastern divine region itself. What divine king, divine sovereign, or divine master, in front of powers that stood at the same level of true gods and creation gods, All of them were nothing but ants. So now do you understand? The Ice Phoenix girl said in a gloomy voice. Hugh, Yunqi deeply exhaled before he spoke in a low voice. I really wish I didn't understand. Devil Emperor, Yunqi felt a chill run up and down his entire body just from seeing those two words flash in his head. She was such a terrifying existence that Yunqi could not even imagine truly trying to resist her, much less putting up a fight against her. Upon thinking of the root of it all, Yunqi silently gritted his teeth. Right now, he really wanted to jab a finger at the nose of the head of the four great creation gods Mo-E and cuss him out. What the hell is wrong with you? What the hell does the evil god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor developing a relationship have to do with you? It's not like he stole your wife. What dignity of the god race, what expunging all shame, all of that is dog shit. You really had way too much energy and time, that's why you did such a stupid thing. And you've also left behind such a huge disaster for us, the present generation. The damn evil god as well. Just how much charm did that heaven-smiting devil emperor have for you to actually give the world piercer to her? If not, she would have long ago been reduced to nothingness outside of the primal chaos, and all of these damned things wouldn't have happened. It is unknown whether those devil gods are still alive, but the activity of the world piercer proves that at least the heaven-smiting devil emperor herself is still alive. The Ice Phoenix girl continued to speak of that incomparably terrifying truth. The power of a devil emperor definitely isn't something this current world can resist. Back then, she had been ensnared by Lord Mo-E's trap, and she has been struggling for survival outside of the primal chaos for millions of years. When she returns, she will definitely be overflowing with hatred, and upon hearing of the death of Lord Mo-E and the destruction of the gods, it is very likely she will vent the hatred and resentment she has accumulated over millions of years on the current world, and the consequences of that are impossible to predict. Now that he had heard all of this, Yunqi was already beginning to understand something. He looked straight at that girl's flawless jade body as he said, You said that I was the only hope. When you said that, did you mean that you wanted me, the person who had inherited the power of the evil god, to go and dissuade the heaven-smiting devil emperor? That's right, the Ice Phoenix girl said. The aura of the world piercer is growing clearer and clearer, and there will be a day when the wall of primal chaos splits open. At that time, the only thing that can stop the heaven-smiting devil emperor will not be power. Rather, it will be that one word, feelings. The evil god had always been well aware of the fact that the world piercer was in the possession of the heaven-smiting devil emperor. After the evil infant destroyed the universe, he used up all of his remaining existence to leave behind a drop of indestructible blood. All because he had anticipated that this day would one day come. Yunqi's lips parted slightly. So what you have inherited is not only the power of the evil god, you have also inherited the will of the evil god. Only you, the person who has inherited the power and the will of the evil god, can remind the newly returned heaven-smiting devil emperor of the feelings she shared with the evil god, and prevent this disastrous calamity from descending upon us. Yunqi's current reaction could only be described as stunned and stupefied. Several years ago, the Ice Phoenix girl had told him that he had inherited not just evil god's divine powers, but his duty as well. As for what exactly this duty entailed, he never gave it much thought besides mentally preparing himself for anything prior to entering the heavenly Netherfrost Lake. He had imagined having to sacrifice his bloodline, his profound veins, or even his life to perform this duty. But of all the things he had imagined his duty might entail, persuasion was definitely not one of them. As the inheritor of the evil god's divine powers and the avatar of the evil god himself, it turned out that his duty was to quell the heaven-smiting devil emperor's anger, hatred, and grudge, and stop her from harming this world. It was because the current primal chaos was so fragile that it couldn't endure her fury or the devil's wrath at all. It meant that he must face down an ancient devil emperor when the time was right. The terror that is the heaven-smiting devil emperor is far beyond your imagination, said the Ice Phoenix girl. Her powers should have weakened after roaming the world beyond for over several million years, but if she even has a shred of devilish energy left in her, she could still destroy the entire god realm in just the flip of a palm. Yunqi, the Ice Phoenix girl, wasn't exaggerating in the slightest. Their opponent was a devil emperor after all. An emperor among devils, it was the equivalent of a creation god among the gods. You, and only you, have a chance at persuading her. The Ice Phoenix girl almost sounded she was begging. The evil god is a divine being of immeasurable greatness. Everything you have inherited is the hope he left behind for future generations, and his will must contain his love and will to protect all of primal chaos. Therefore, you are the only one who can transmit his will to the heaven-smiting devil emperor and cure her of her fury and hatred. The best-case scenario would be her becoming the ruler of the primal chaos. As the ruler, it would be her natural duty to protect all of the primal chaos. And since she is also the devil emperor of the heaven-smiting devil clan, the devils will obey her command. The rest of the devil gods would have no choice but to obey her and restrain themselves. Xianxia's face was trembling. He still wasn't able to say a single word in response. Facing down an ancient devil emperor. It was a scene he couldn't imagine no matter how he tried. The devil emperors of ancient times were terrible beings that could destroy him 1,000,000 times over with just a glance or breath. He lifted his hands and felt for the evil god divine power circulating inside his body. A long silence later, he suddenly said, "Ice Phoenix Spirit, you read my mind before, didn't you? Then you should know that hatred had once driven me into a devil who lost all of his humanity. That is why I'm well aware what a terrible thing hatred is. No matter how righteous Moi's cause was, there is no changing the fact that he tricked the heaven-smiting devil emperor using the most despicable method possible." Xianxia wasn't a member of the era of gods. Naturally, he didn't feel the same respect the Ice Phoenix girl had for the leader of the creation gods. The heaven-smiting devil emperor and the rest of the heaven-smiting devil gods must have hated him to the bone for his deception. The world beyond the primal chaos is a world of death and destruction. Even if the world piercer has kept them all alive, it must have been a most difficult life, several million years. Their hatred and fury has accumulated for several million long years, and it is these emotions that has fueled their will to survive and return all these years. "Several million years worth of hate," said Xianxia before inhaling deeply. He couldn't imagine how terrible this hatred would be. At the very least, it wasn't something that even 10,000 hatred that filled the universe could describe. Is it really something the old bond between the evil god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor can resolve? After experiencing several million years worth of hell and accumulating all this hatred, the first thing they would surely do was to vent it all onto the world. Xianxia had personally experienced this during his previous life in the Azure Cloud continent. The return of the heaven-smiting devil emperor and the devil gods could only be 1,000,000,000 times worse than that. Moreover, he was just a man, but they were the devils. A devil's negative emotions had always been intense. Even if they weren't the devils, several million years' worth of grudge and hatred was still more than capable of distorting any living being's heart and soul. Furthermore, setting the rest of the devils aside, was the heaven-smiting devil emperor. Even the same heaven-smiting devil emperor from several million years ago. The Ice Phoenix girl could sense Xianxia's worry. If she were to be honest with herself, she had absolutely no confidence that this plan could work. She only knew that Xianxia was the only hope, no matter how infinitesimally small it was. Her entire clan had been tricked and exiled to the world beyond the primal chaos. Their grudge and hatred had grown unbridled for several million years. There was no man, creature, true god or true devil who could tell what the final form of their hatred would take when they finally returned. "Xianxia," the Ice Phoenix girl said quietly, "be it in the ancient times or now, the world has always had an extremely biased and distorted view of devils and darkness profound energy." As the bearer of darkness profound energy himself, Xianxia fully acknowledged this point. The heaven-smiting devil emperor is the emperor of devil gods, but she may not be as scary as you imagine her to be. The great, righteous, and kind evil god wouldn't have fallen in love with her and married her otherwise. At the very least, the heaven-smiting evil emperor has never been known to be brutal or tyrannical, be it during the ancient times or now. The god race knows little about the heaven-smiting devil clan. All they know is that they are a clan of monarch devils that can transform into swords just like the sword spirit god clan. Xianxia. The evil god clearly loved the heaven-smiting devil emperor deeply, or he wouldn't have gifted her something as precious as the world piercer willingly. Just the same, the heaven-smiting devil emperor must love the evil god just as deeply, and she will surely not ignore the evil god's final will and power completely. Besides that, several million years is an extremely long period of time to most living beings, but not so much to a devil emperor. Also, a devil emperor wouldn't be so weak as to succumb to the hatred and the passage of time so easily. If she can sense the evil god's last will to protect the world, then maybe, just maybe, there is a chance that she may choose to honor it. Furthermore, the reason the heaven-smiting devil emperor has even survived to this day is because the evil god gifted her the world piercer. Her love for her husband isn't the only thing that will change her mind. I've never fallen in love with anyone myself, but even I know that love is the one thing that can transcend everything regardless of plane or dimension. The Ice Phoenix girl worked hard to encourage, console, and give hope to Xianxia from multiple angles. Some of her attempts might seem forced and deliberate, but Xianxia was literally the god realm's only hope. She had to supply him with enough confidence no matter what. "You're right," was what Xianxia said, but his expression hadn't relaxed in the slightest. "But there is one problem with your plan. I'm not the evil god, I'm just the inheritor of his power." Her love for the evil god and her love for the inheritor of the evil god's power are two completely separate things. Not to mention that the evil god's will you're speaking of is unreal to say the least, even if she did sense something like that. Hugh. If the evil god was still alive to this day, then there was a high chance that he could calm down the heaven-smiting devil emperor and persuade her to put down her hatred. But Xianxia himself ultimately wasn't the evil god himself. It just wasn't a thing anyone could feel optimistic about. "I understand your concerns," said the Ice Phoenix girl. "The evil god's will and the evil god himself are two separate things, of course. However, you don't just possess the evil god's will and inheritance. You have another trump card that may be far, far more persuasive than even the will and inheritance of the evil god." "Huh?" Xianxia was caught off guard by her declaration. "What's that?" The Ice Phoenix girl explained. "The heaven-punishing divine emperor fought a battle against the evil god after exiling the heaven-smiting devil clan. That great battle between creation gods shook the entire primal chaos to the point where detailed records of the battle still exist to this day. As for the reason behind the battle, it was stated in both ancient and current records that the evil god challenged Lord Mo-Yi to battle because he was disgusted by Lord Mo-Yi's methods, and because Lord Mo-Yi's actions were undeserving of his title as a creation god." Xianxia nodded. Only the creation gods of the ancient times knew that the evil god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor were husband and wife back then. "Do you remember me telling you that the evil god's loss of his wife wasn't the only thing that drove him into fighting Lord Mo-Yi? Do you also remember me telling you that this battle had decided the fates the evil god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor's offspring? It was something I accidentally heard from Lord Li Xiu a long time ago." Xianxia nodded again. Everything the Ice Phoenix girl had said back then was a shocker, so it was no surprise that he remembered it as well as yesterday. No one knew who had won that battle, not even Lord Zai or Lord Li Xiu. The only ones who knew about the result were probably the combatants themselves, Lord Mo-Yi and the evil god. Naturally, I was also clueless about the final victor of that battle, until I'd read all of your memories a few years ago. Thanks to your memories and my own knowledge, I'd uncovered much of the secrets and truths that was hidden in my history, including the result of the battle between Lord Mo-Yi and the evil god, and the final fate of the offspring of the evil god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor. "Me? You're talking about my memories?" Xianxia was confused. His knowledge regarding the era of gods was completely hearsay. Everything he knew had come from either Jasmine or the Golden Crow spirit. In fact, most of his revelations regarding the era of gods had come from the Ice Phoenix girl herself. He himself knew nothing about the era of gods. However, the Ice Phoenix girl claimed to have learned the truth from his memories, a truth that not even the gods or even the creation gods of ancient times were privy to. If this wasn't nonsense, then what was? If the truth was in my memory, then how did I not know about this? "That's right," said the Ice Phoenix girl without explaining what she had seen in his memories. Judging purely from the results alone, the evil god had won, and then lost the battle against Lord Mo-Yi. Xianxia won, and then lost. I told you about this before. There are also some records that still exist to this day. Although Lord Mo-Yi was the leader of the four great creation gods, he was also the one who passed away the soonest. He had died before the war between gods and devils had even truly began. His passing wasn't caused by an injury or an accident. He passed away simply because he had reached the end of his lifespan. As the creation god with the strongest divine power, Lord Mo-Yi undoubtedly had the longest lifespan out of any living being. But for some reason, he ran out of lifespan earlier than any other gods. There is only one thing that can explain this, and that is the heaven-punishing ancestral sword. This is public knowledge. However, Lord Li Xiu also told me that Lord Mo Yi had only used the ancestral sword once in his whole life, and it was the time he had cut open the wall of primal chaos and subjected the heaven-smiting devil clan to the world beyond primal chaos. Although his lifespan had been reduced greatly as a result, he still shouldn't have passed away as early as he did. It doesn't make sense, unless he didn't use the ancestral sword once, but twice in a short time, burning his lifespan at an accelerated rate as a result. If that is the case, then anything is possible. Yunqi's pupils shrank. Are you saying? That is correct. It is very likely that the second time he used the ancestral sword was during the battle against the evil god, Yunqi. That battle also decided the fate of the evil god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor's offspring. Undoubtedly, their offspring would turn out to be a half-man and half-devil, and Lord Mo Yi is such a righteous and evil-loathing person that he would never allow such a person to exist in this world, especially because they are the offspring of a creation god. That is why he wouldn't allow himself to lose that battle no matter what. However, the battle didn't go as Lord Mo Yi had expected it to go. Lord Li Xiu once said that the evil god's strength may have surpassed Lord Mo Yi's. So Lord Mo Yi probably lost that battle, but he couldn't accept his defeat or the consequences of his defeat, so he ultimately decided to use the ancestral sword. The evil god lost because of the ancestral sword's power. When the two engaged in battle, Lord Mo Yi had just used the ancestral sword to cut apart the wall of primal chaos a short time ago. The consequences of using the ancestral sword twice in such a short time isn't just as simple as losing twice the amount of lifespan. That was why Lord Mo Yi passed away so early. Lord Mo Yi must have known about the full consequences of his decision, but that was just the kind of person he was. He was the highest monarch of the god race and the leader of the creation gods. He couldn't allow even a single grain of sand to sit in his eyes, especially when this sand had offended the pride and bottom line of the god race. Yunqi asked, "So, the offspring between the evil god and the evil smiting devil emperor was killed just like that?" But the answer the Ice Phoenix girl gave caught Yunqi by surprise. No, they weren't killed, they were split into two halves. Daughter 2 split in two halves. The Ice Phoenix girl was saying something that he couldn't understand at all again. "What do you mean by split in two halves?" asked Yunqi in astonishment. The Ice Phoenix girl replied, "The offspring between the evil god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor is a girl, since she inherited both the evil god's divine power and the heaven-smiting devil emperor's darkness devilish power. She is undoubtedly a half-man and half-devil who is unaccepted by the god race or the devil race." Although Lord Mo Yi had beaten the evil god, my guess is that Lord Mo Yi knew that it was an unfair battle, and that he had no face to wipe the daughter of the evil god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor from existence completely. That is why he had suggested a middle ground instead. His request to the evil god was to wipe out the devilish part of her and leave the non-devilish part of her untouched. That way she'd be able to stay with the god race. Yunqi, the evil god had no other choice. This was the best and only path that was left for him. Therefore, he destroyed his daughter's body and split her soul in half, separating the devil's soul from the divine soul. I know that the notion of remaking a divine soul's body may sound unbelievable to you, but it is something a creation god can achieve easily. The splitting of one's soul meant that the soul's original memories would fade away completely. This means that the divine soul who was reborn in a new body would become a completely new existence. In fact, that wasn't Lord Mo Yi's only request. He may have allowed her divine soul to remain with the god race, but no one was allowed to know that she was the daughter of the evil god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor. The evil god was forbidden from meeting her for the rest of his life, too. Yunqi frowned deeply and clenched his fists without realizing it. From the standpoint of the gods and devils, Lord Mo Yi's request was perfectly normal. But from the standpoint of a father, he understood just how cruel a request it was to the evil god. He just couldn't imagine himself being unable to see Wuxin, and Wuxin not realizing that she had him as a father for eternity. After that, the evil god entrusted his daughter's divine soul to the god he trusted the most to remake his daughter's divine body, and she stayed with the clan of that god after she was reborn. Maybe the evil god himself was completely disappointed, disheartened, or guilt-ridden by everything that had happened to his daughter. But some time later, he abandoned his former title as the creation god of elements and called himself the evil god. After that, he hid himself from the world and never concerned himself with the god race or the god he had entrusted his daughter to ever again. He abandoned his supreme title as a creation god and called himself the evil god. The title evil god was a divine title that was highly respected and admired by all living things, and yet Xianxia could clearly pick up a deep sense of sorrow from it. The god the evil god had entrusted his daughter's divine soul to was a clan leader, and this clan leader made preparations so that the evil god's daughter would appear to be his daughter to everyone. At the same time, he gave her the best treatment and protection he could afford. The reason he treated her so well was because his clan owed the evil god a great favor. That was why he was willing to spend everything he had to protect his daughter and guard this secret for eternity. As for the evil god daughter's devil soul, the evil god couldn't find it in his heart to wipe her out no matter how he tried, so he used an unknown method to fool Lord Mo's senses and hid her in a secret place he had created at the last moment. He transformed it into a world of darkness that was suited for her, and he populated the world with many dark creatures because he was afraid that she would be too lonely. The Ice Phoenix girl's story ended here. The story was obviously a combination of rumors from ancient times and the Ice Phoenix girl's own assumptions, but for some reason it felt almost familiar to him. Deja vu. Ice Phoenix spirit, what does this have to do with the trump card that will help me persuade the heaven-smiting devil emperor better than even the evil gods will you mentioned? Asked Xianxia. The Ice Phoenix girl said slowly, the daughter of the evil god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor is still alive. What? Xianxia exclaimed. That terrible battle directly led to the destruction of the gods and the devils and the evil infant calamity. But due to the clan doing everything they could to protect the girl with the divine soul, she was miraculously able to survive the calamities in a profound arc imprinted with the world piercer's power. As for the one with the devil soul, she was completely unaffected by the calamities because she had been hidden in a pocket world in the lower realms. She too continues to exist to this day. Xianxia, that strange feeling of familiarity and deja vu is growing stronger. None of this is knowledge that I'd learned during the ancient times. It all comes from you, the very first person to know that the daughter of the evil god is still alive in this day and age. The Ice Phoenix girl's words completely stupefied Xianxia. Me? You mean I saw her, them before? The Ice Phoenix girl gave Xianxia an obvious hint. The god clan the evil god had entrusted his daughter's divine soul to was called the Sword Spirit God Clan. This god clan possessed a certain profound arc that was famous since the era of gods. The interior of this profound arc is an individual world of its own. It is a gift from the evil god to the Sword Spirit God Clan while he was still the creation god of elements, and it possesses incredible space-traveling abilities because the evil god had engraved its power of space with the world piercer itself. This profound arc is none other than the primordial profound arc in your memories. Xianxia's eyes widened bit by bit. His mind turned blank like he was struck by thunder, and it wasn't until a long time later that he opened his mouth and spat out a certain girl's name with great difficulty. Her real name is Ling Wanhu, and in public she is known as the daughter of the chief of the Sword Spirit God Clan, Ling Zhen. I even met her in person back then. The Ice Phoenix girl said, of course, I could never have imagined that she was the daughter of the evil god back then. Xianxia's mouth was wide agape. He just couldn't close it no matter what. A long time ago, Jasmine had told him that there was a clan called the Sword Spirit God Clan among the ancient gods who could transform into swords. Given enough spirit energy, the primordial profound arc supposedly could travel to any space, and finally, the profound, meaningful words that dying soul had said to him before he entrusted Hunger to him. I am only a guardian, my little mistress, and my race has long been forgotten by the world. There is no need to mention them anymore, my little mistress. Her body has been inflicted with a terrible devilish poison within all the realms. Only the sky poison pearl can cure her. In order to stem the invasion of this devilish poison, our little mistress was sealed into the coffin of eternity. Chaotic turmoil, the terrible battle of gods and devils, the overturning of the sky, the weeping of the gods and the heavens. I brought my little mistress with me into the ark to flee. The coffin of eternity sealed her body and soul, allowed her presence to disappear into the chaotic space, and allowed her to escape that heaven-destroying calamity. If one day the sky poison pearl can cleanse the devilish poison from her body, and she can once again awaken, then my bitter life will finally come to a happy end. Everything matched up to the Ice Phoenix spirit's words perfectly. Even the sword Hunger could transform to was called the Heaven-Smiting Devil Slayer Sword. Heaven-Smiting the heaven-smiting devil clan. Was Hunger really the daughter of the evil god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor? In that age, the younger daughter of the sword spirit god clan chief, Wanhu, was known to everyone because she was the most pampered child in the entire sword spirit clan. The clan chief and his wife loved her more than any of their offspring, and absolutely no one suspected that she wasn't actually the sword spirit god clan chief's true daughter. Later on, after Lord Moe, the heaven-punishing god emperor had passed away, and the heaven-punishing ancestral sword had become masterless. The grudge that had been accumulating between the gods and the devils since forever finally erupted in full force. The sword spirit clan was blessed Lord Li Xiu's light divine energy, and the sword they transformed into was the Devil Slayer sword, a great bane against any devil. That was why the devil race had spared no effort in attacking them and wiping them out before any other races of the gods. It is said that the devil race had despicably used a terrifying devil poison that not even Lord Li Xiu could purify before it kills its victims. Countless sword spirits, including the chief and his wife, passed away because of the poison. However, it was later discovered that the body of the sword spirit little princess, Wanhu, was nowhere to be found. The sword spirit god clan's main profound arc, the spirit world of heaven and earth, was missing as well. The spirit world of heaven and earth was the primordial profound arc currently in Xianxia's possession right now. At the time, the gods thought that the sword spirit little princess had died in both spirit and body, and that the devils had claimed the spirit world of heaven and earth for themselves. In reality, the spirit world of heaven and earth had concealed their presence completely and slipped into a spatial rift. I'm sure that even the evil god thought that she had died as well, since he couldn't verify her whereabouts without the world piercer. After passing through countless space and time, fate finally arranged her to meet you, the owner of the sky poison pearl. Right now, Xianxia was feeling completely dizzy. It was because the Ice Phoenix girl's story was just too extraordinary. Hunger had come to him as a complete accident. She was a naughty, hyperreactive, gluttonous, sleepy, eccentric, undisciplined, and queer little monster who was even more monstrous than your usual monster. But now the Ice Phoenix spirit was telling him that she was the evil god's DDDD daughter. Xianxia's brain and heart shook uncontrollably. The FCK. I'm guessing that the sword spirit god clan chief himself was the one who remade her body after the evil god had entrusted his daughter to him. However, her divine soul was ultimately incomplete because it had been split in half. So in order to complete her soul and convince everyone that she really was her daughter, he gave up his own divine power and divine soul so that her divine soul could grow into completion. After that, she became Ling Wanhu and Hunger. Thanks to the sword spirit god clan chief, she possessed both the divine powers and the characteristics of a sword spirit god. She had light divine energy and the divine aura of a sword spirit god, and the sword she transformed into possessed the devil-slaying attribute as well. However, she wasn't just a devil-slayer sword. Heaven-smiting devil-slayer sword. Xianxia whispered. Did the heaven-smiting part of her title come from the heaven-smiting devil emperor herself? That is correct, said the Ice Phoenix girl. Even with the devil half in her separated from her soul, her essence was still the same because nothing could change the fact that she was the daughter of the evil god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor. Even if Hunger didn't have the sword spirit god clan chief's divine power and soul in her, she still would have had the ability to transform into a sword because the heaven-smiting devil emperor herself and her race, the heaven-smiting devil clan, was a race that could transform into swords in the first place. Xianxia nodded numbly in response. When he had picked up Hunger at the primordial profound arc, Jasmine had told him that there was a race each among the god race and the devil race that could transform into swords. One was called the sword spirit god clan and the other the heaven-smiting devil clan. When Hunger had transformed into a sword for the first time, Jasmine had had a strange reaction when she saw the words engraved onto the body of the sword. Heaven-smiting and devil slayer. There were several times Jasmine had looked like she wanted to say something when he asked her about them. But in the end, she simply said, "It's not possible," and left things there. The sword a member of the sword spirit god clan transforms into is called the Devil Slayer sword. It is the bane of all devils. On the other hand, the sword a member of the Heaven-Smiting Devil clan transforms into is called the Heaven-Smiting Devil God sword. It is the bane of all light profound energy. The name, Heaven-Smiting Devil God sword, caused a shiver in Xianxia's heart. It was because he recalled what the Moon Slaughter Devil Sovereign had shouted during the battle when he was summoning Hunger. The Moon Slaughter Devil Sovereign had cried out the name Devil Slayer Sword first, followed by an even more surprised shout, Heaven-Smiting Devil God Sword. As the Devil Emperor of the Heaven-Smiting Devil clan, and one of the 4 Devil Emperors that of the Devil race, the sword the Heaven-Smiting Devil Emperor transforms into is the ultimate form of the Heaven-Smiting Devil God Sword, the Heaven-Smiting Devil Emperor Sword. However, the sword Hunger transforms into is incredibly strange. It is a Heaven-Smiting Devil Slayer Sword that contains the characteristics of both the Devil Slayer Sword and the Heaven-Smiting Devil God Sword, and something like this has never appeared even during the ancient times. She is an existence that defies all common sense, and her future and her limits are both unpredictable and unimaginable. So, which one of the 2 sword spirit clans eat swords to increase their powers? Asked Xianxia. The answer is none of them. I'm not talking about just the sword spirit god clan or the heaven-smiting devil clan either. I'd never heard of a race in the past or now who can consume swords to increase their strength. Not to my knowledge, at least. Xianxia. The only explanation I can give is that Hunger's extraordinary background and tragic fate have caused her to undergo some sort of unusual change that is beyond even my understanding. After all, she is the daughter of the evil god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor, a first in the history of the primal chaos, and the only proof that gods and devils have ever bonded with one another. Moreover, Hunger is an existence at the level of a creation god, so she is beyond the understanding of a normal divine spirit like me. Hunger, her somewhat abnormal behavior aside, she was just a simple girl to him. She was so simple that the only thing she cared about in her life was feeding and sleeping, and nothing ever seemed to worry her in the slightest. Her vermilion-colored eyes especially looked like they were eternally pure and clean. To think that something like this would be hidden beneath her simple appearance and behavior. Suddenly, a thought struck Xianxia's mind like thunder. He looked up abruptly and asked, "You mentioned that the devil half of her soul is still alive. Could it be that you're referring to?" End Cliff, World of Darkness. She shared the exact same body shape and appearance as Hunger, and she lived and relied on darkness to survive. She was also a soul, an incomplete soul. She didn't recognize Hunger because they'd never met or known each other. However, there was undoubtedly a profound connection between them both. To this day, Xianxia could still remember the eternally happy Hunger suddenly tearing up and crying uncontrollably after meeting Yuer. Back when Jasmine was remaking her body, she had told him that the soul was the foundation of one's body. This meant that the appearance and the body shape of a person were determined by their soul. Everything was matching up perfectly. That's correct. The Ice Phoenix girl gave him an affirmative reply before continuing. The other half of the evil god's daughter's soul is the incomplete girl you met in the abyss of darkness on the Azure Cloud continent. Xianxia inhaled deeply and held his breath for a long time before finally exhaling. Hunger and Yuer, who could imagine that they were part of the same person? Who could imagine that they were the daughter of the evil god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor? Hunger had clung to him like gum beneath his shoe when she first saw him. Yuer had displayed great dependence and friendliness towards him since the beginning. Looking back, it was probably an instinctive reaction engraved in their very souls. They had reacted to him because of the divine power he bore, the power their father used to bear. Hunger, Yuer, muttered Xianxia to himself. He couldn't describe what he was feeling right now. Yuer, Silent One, the Ice Phoenix girl exclaimed in surprise. Xianxia hadn't yet given Yuer her name when she had read his memories. Is that the new name you gave her? It is a very suitable name. She is the daughter of the evil god and the devil emperor. She is of the noblest birth, and yet she can only ever live in darkness like a silent ghost, never to see the light of day. Sigh. It was impossible to tell if the Ice Phoenix girl was sighing for the evil god or for Hunger and Yuer. Perhaps it was difficult for a mortal to imagine that someone as powerful as a creation god would carry such terrible sorrow and helplessness. Hunger at least had a complete body and soul, a pair of parents who doted on her, and a clan who loved her from the bottom of their hearts. Even now she had Xianxia to keep her from feeling lonely, hungry, sleepless, and uneasy. But Yuer is probably another hope the evil god left behind for the world, said Xianxia emotionally. Yuer was the one who gave me the darkness seed. If I'm not mistaken, the evil god had probably gone to the world of darkness to visit his daughter, Yuer. just before he created the indestructible blood at the cost of his life. He purposely left the darkness seed behind with her so that the successor of the evil god's divine power could find her, receive her guidance, and make the heaven-smiting devil emperor aware of her existence. When the devils and gods were still alive, the evil god didn't dare to head to Cloud's End Cliff to visit his daughter. When all the devils and gods were dead, he was finally able to take one final look at her. But even that fulfilled wish was burdened by a great sorrow. At the time, the evil god couldn't have known that his other daughter was still alive. He must have passed away in pain and guilt, believing that his other daughter was dead. "I see," the Ice Phoenix girl said with a sigh. The evil god truly was the greatest divine being of them all. Even when he was disappointed so thoroughly by fate, he never stopped concerning himself with the future and the world. Despite having discarded the title of the creation god, he was unable to abandon his own roots to the end. He really did deserve the word great. "Ice Phoenix Spirit," Xianxia asked suddenly, "you are a divine being of the god race, aren't you? Why don't you hate or reject devils yourself? For example, you know that I possess darkness profound energy, but why?" In the ancient times, the god race and the devil race were on opposite sides. There was no such thing as a middle ground, and both races held an unquenchable animosity towards each other. The fact that the monarch of the god race, Mo-E, had acted as cruelly as he did was proof of that. And yet, Xianxia had never sensed any animosity or rejection towards darkness profound energy from the Ice Phoenix girl. The Ice Phoenix girl said quietly, "Back then, my understanding of devils was the same as all divine beings. I believed them to be the face of negativity, filth, and sin, and that they were an existence that was rejected by the heavenly law itself because they possessed darkness profound energy. I even believed that it was the righteous path and the unsaid responsibility of the god race to destroy them all. But after surviving all the battles, the destruction, the aimless drifting through life, I was actually able to wake up from the fever and recall everything that had happened in this prison of eternal silence. Naturally, this calm and tranquility had made me understand many things that I wasn't able to see clearly in the past. The ancestral god was the one who had created the god race and the devil race, with one side representing Yang and the other Yin. If they are both creations of the ancestral god, then are they really all that different from one another besides the power they possess? If the devil race truly didn't belong in this world like everyone had believed, then why did the ancestral god even bother creating the devil race in the first place? Wouldn't the god race alone have sufficed? Xianxia. Plus, it is a fact, an unbelievably sorrowful but truthful fact that we must admit that. The cause of everything, the true culprit behind the destruction of the god race and the devil race is. The Ice Phoenix girl's voice became slow, quiet, and sorrowful. In the end, she wasn't able to say the words that would point towards the true culprit because of the sheer irony they contained, and because she was a member of the god race. Yes, Xianxia knew very little about the ancient times, but even he could deduce from the rumors alone that the god race were the ones who had brought forth the end of the era of gods. It really was incredibly ironic. The good and evil of living being has nothing to do with the power they bear. It has nothing to do with the devils, the gods, or the race they were born into either. But in that era, the word devil had been twisted into the face of pure evil, and that belief still exists to this day. Xianxia had heard of the fate of the northern divine region. It was why he had never dared to reveal his darkness profound energy, not even a little. A few years ago, Wei Hen had traded his life for Li Jianming's at the Profound God Convention. On the one hand, the former had gone to the northern divine region to exchange his life for darkness profound energy. It was so that he could obtain the power necessary to carry out his revenge. On the other hand, Li Jianming had slaughtered Wei Hen's entire family and sect, and violated his wife and daughter for his selfish desires, who here was the real devil who deserved to die. When a belief has become so deeply rooted that it has become common sense, there is almost no power in the world that can change it, said the Ice Phoenix girl. The people's belief that all devils are evil is as rooted and common as the incompatibility between fire and water. You definitely cannot reveal your secret for all of eternity. Since you possess the evil god's darkness seed, it is possible for you to control your darkness profound energy. What this means is that your secret will never be revealed unless you wish it so. Or even better, you should try to forget that you even possess darkness profound energy in the first place. It is a choice you must make considering the current world's perception of darkness profound energy. Xianxia nodded. I know. Both Jasmine and Mu Xuanyin had told him something similar. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that he would never be able to stand tall in this world again if his secret was revealed even once. The evil god's power and will, the heaven-smiting devil emperor's daughter, love, kindness, and familial bond may just be enough to overcome several million years of hatred. It may just be enough to stop her from harming the world the evil god wishes to protect, and a world where her daughter still lives peacefully to this day. This was the evil god's final wish, and the best-case scenario the Ice Phoenix girl had envisioned in her head. The heaven-smiting devil emperor would without a doubt become the absolute ruler of the primal chaos once she had returned. There was no power in the entire world that could resist or defy her. The difference between a ruler full of hatred and violence, and a ruler who was willing to fulfill her lover's dying will and her surviving family member was worlds apart, to say the least. You are the key to this hope, Xianxia. I beg you, you must meet with the heaven-smiting devil emperor the day the crimson light falls apart completely. The meeting will undoubtedly be accompanied with immeasurable risk, but you are our only hope. This fragile world simply doesn't have what it takes to withstand the hatred and fury of a devil emperor anymore. Successor of the evil god's power and will, please go and become the savior we need. At this point, Xianxia was made aware of the truth behind the crimson crack, the duty and hope he bore on his back, and the tribulations he was about to face in the future. He had even learned of Hunger and Yuer's extraordinary past and background. Xianxia actually calmed down during the last moments of the revelation. After all, the true face of fear was often the unknown, not the truth. I understand now. Xianxia nodded with calm eyes and even breathing. He didn't even hesitate for too long or feel afraid like the Ice Phoenix had expected him to be. I will go. If I succeed, I suppose it's inevitable that I'll become a savior in everyone's eyes. Well, it's not a bad title. At least I'll be winning the people's gratitude and respect instead of the nothing I'm receiving right now. Even if I fail, I should still be able to protect myself and the people around me due to the evil god's inheritance and hunger. If I hadn't obtained the evil god's legacy back then, I wouldn't have had everything I have today. I may still be crippled or worse, dead at this time. It is only natural that such great kindness came with equally great responsibility. There is no reason for me not to go, be it from the perspective of humanity, myself, or the favor I owe. Xianxia exhaled slightly after he was finished speaking. He literally couldn't imagine facing a devil emperor who had returned to the primal chaos while full of hatred. It was impossible to predict what might happen next. It was entirely possible for him to be wiped out before he even had the time to open his mouth. I'm very glad for your words, said the Ice Phoenix girl. Whatever the end result might be, I am incredibly grateful and glad that someone like you, a shining hope, could exist in the world. I hope myself that I won't betray your expectations, replied Xianxia sincerely. The evil god had left behind the indestructible blood to protect the generations to come. The Ice Phoenix girl before him was also doing her best to protect the world during the final moments of her life, even though she no longer had a place in the current world. You don't need to put too much pressure on yourself. She is the Devil Emperor after all. There is absolutely no one who can control or decide how the situation will turn out. So you are already saving the world just by daring to stand between the world and the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor. You don't have the power to control the result, and no one has the right to ask that from you. Xianxia exhaled slightly after hearing the Ice Phoenix girl's consoling words. I once said that I would grant the last vestiges of my existence and my divine powers to you after your resolve is sufficient. You now have the right to claim my power, but the time is not yet right. My biggest concern during my remaining lifespan has always been how the world will turn out after the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor had returned from the world beyond. So please, I ask you to allow me to exist until the day the results became clear. After that, whatever the world may become, I promise to grant you everything I have left. Please don't turn down my offer or try to keep me around. It is because I will no longer have any reason or purpose to live in this world after I have my answer. Xianxia nodded. I understand. It seriously did not matter if he got the Ice Phoenix's power or not when he had the return of a Devil Emperor to deal with. Right now, the only thing he could think of was how to face a true Devil Emperor of the ancient times. Oh right, Xianxia suddenly recalled something and asked. Last time you said you wished to tell me one of my master's secrets. What is it exactly? Spirit temporarily fell silent after hearing Xianxia's question. She then said, The world today belongs to the mortals. The shape and laws of the primal chaos are completely different from what they used to be, and this is a world where gods aren't necessary and should not exist. That is why I had wanted to gift my last vestiges of strength to a mortal on this star realm since a long time ago, and my choice was your master, Xianxia. As the Ice Phoenix, I am one of the 3 supreme water attribute beasts of the ancient past, and I am a high-ranked divine spirit with the qualification to stand next to a creation god. Unfortunately, I am also a member of the demon race, so my power just isn't too compatible with humans. That is why those humans who have inherited my bloodline and profound art are rarely able to reach their pinnacle, the divine master realm. Your master is first person ever to become a divine master in the history of Snow Song Realm. Do you know why? Xianxia gave the question some thought before answering. I once heard from Palace Master Bingyun, the one who brought me to the God realm, that my master possesses something special called the Ice Phoenix Divine Soul. Is it something you gave her? That's right, answered the Ice Phoenix girl. I chose her and granted her part of my divine soul in secret while she was still a young girl. As she cultivated and grew older, the power in my divine soul slowly fused with her and aided her breakthrough to Divine Master Realm. That is how she has become the first Divine Master Realm King of Snow Song Realm. I see, muttered Xianxia. My divine soul is harmless to her, but it is too high level for her to fuse with it quickly and easily. 10 millennium had passed since she started cultivating, and yet she had only managed to take in about 20% of its divine power as her own. Originally, this process would have taken another 30 millennium to complete, until she met you, and this process was quickened drastically. Huh! Xianxia was just about to ask what he did when he suddenly recalled something. He instantly choked on his words as his expression turned strange. About that, I actually didn't know. Both your evil god divine aura and your dragon god divine aura are of a higher level than my divine soul, so when you copulated with her, she was given some of your evil god divine aura. As a result, the fusion process became much smoother, and her power was able to grow quickly in just a short time. Xianxia was clearly trying to cut this topic short, but the Ice Phoenix girl had ignored the strange expression on his face and stated the truth bluntly. At least she had said it in an even and unaffected tone, or his facial muscles would be spasming right now. I had no choice in this matter. I hadn't wanted it to happen, said Xianxia. But the more he tried to explain, the more awkward he felt, so Xianxia quickly changed the subject and asked, Does that mean that Master has known about you since a long time ago? Yes, she is definitely aware that I exist. However, she has never met me, replied the Ice Phoenix girl. You are the only human I've ever met in person. At first, I'd planned to pass away after I'd granted her my powers, but a terrible premonition suddenly struck me out of nowhere. So I kept myself alive until I sensed that terrible presence and your arrival. When you first showed up, your evil god divine aura had surprised me greatly. I was also able to witness many secrets that even the people of the ancient era weren't able to learn from your memories. Perhaps the heavens had kept me alive for a good reason. A large majority of the truths she had told Xianxia had actually come from his own memories. By combining Xianxia's memories and her own knowledge, she was able to figure out many terrifying or shocking secrets of the ancient times. Is this the secret of my master you wish to tell me? Asked Xianxia suspiciously. Last time when the Ice Phoenix girl had brought up this topic, she had hesitated for a long time before stopping herself in the end. What she had told him just now, the fact that Mu Xuanyin possessed the Ice Phoenix's divine soul, had in fact been revealed to him freely by Mu Bingyun many years ago. Technically, it barely counted as a secret, but only barely. Moreover, it didn't fit with the hesitation Ice Phoenix girl had displayed during their last meeting. The Ice Phoenix girl didn't answer him immediately. Instead, she stayed silent for a moment before finally whispering, "Never mind. I've thought over this matter again and again, and in the end I think it's best if you're kept in the dark about this. Right now, your relationship with your master is at its best possible state, and I simply cannot see any benefit in revealing to you her secret. It will only cause some unnecessary friction." Xianxia frowned as he tried to comprehend the Ice Phoenix girl's words, but failed to because of how vague they were. He urgently needed to know anything that was related to Mu Xuanyin, so he pursued the subject further and asked, "What do you mean? Is Master purposely hiding something important to me?" "No, she herself doesn't know about this. It is beyond her control too," answered the Ice Phoenix girl. She could sense the unusually strong urgency behind Xianxia's voice, and she thought she had an idea what this urgency really meant. Her icy breath moved slightly as she whispered, "This is a secret that will only bring negativity if it is revealed. It is better if you don't hear it, and there is no need for you to hear it." "I'm sorry," Xianxia firmly shook his head and said, "but if it is related to my master, then I simply must know." The Ice Phoenix girl sighed quietly. "If that is your wish. However, I will be giving you some time to think through your decision rationally. If you still wish to learn about this secret after the heaven-smiting devil emperor is gone, then I will tell you everything before I disappear." Xianxia wanted to say something more, but the Ice Phoenix girl continued by saying, "You won't have to wait for a long time. After all, that day is very, very near already." "Very near?" Xianxia's attention was instantly diverted. "How near is very near? Since you can clearly sense the world piercer's presence already, can you determine how long it'll take before the wall of primal chaos is penetrated completely?" A few breaths of silence later, the Ice Phoenix girl answered, "In a month at most." These 5 words alone caused Xianxia's eyes to shake violently. Oh, a month. It was such a short time that he couldn't help but feel chilled to the bone. A month? How can it be this fast? Xianxia's breath felt icy to himself, and even his back was crawling with chills. Unless the world piercer's power were to deteriorate drastically without warning, the wall of primal chaos will fall in at most a month's time. That is why I considered your return to be quite timely. Xianxia, a month. Damn it, that star realm called the Eternal Heaven Realm will be making a move before a month is up too. The Ice Phoenix girl's words caught him by surprise for a second, but he immediately said, "That's right. I met the Eternal Heaven God Emperor just now. The Eternal Heaven Realm has built a great dimensional formation that leads to the eastmost area of primal chaos, and they are about to convene the Eternal Heaven General Assembly to deal with the Scarlet Disaster. All divine masters in the Eastern Divine region are required to participate." All divine masters? A moment ago, he had been stunned by the idea of every divine master in the Eastern Divine region gathering in one place. But after he learned that their opponent was the heaven-smiting devil emperor, forget just the Eastern Divine region. Not even every divine master in the entire God realm combined could do anything against a devil emperor. They were nothing more than a bunch of ants that the devil emperor could crush at her leisure. But what else could they do if not that? No wonder the Eternal Heaven God Emperor had looked as bleak and sorrowful as he was when he spoke of the truth, so much so that he was almost despairing. Wait a second, how did the Eternal Heaven God Emperor learn about the truth? Oh right, it must be the Eternal Heaven Pearl. The Ice Phoenix spirit had once said that the only people who knew that the evil god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor were married were the heaven-smiting devil emperor herself and the 4 great creation gods. Naturally, that also included the creation god of order, Zai-Ki. If the former master of the Eternal Heaven Pearl was Zai-Ki, then it was only natural that his artifact soul would be privy to this secret as well. If even the Ice Phoenix spirit could detect the world piercer's presence, then it was impossible that the Eternal Heaven Pearl would fail to sense it. Combining the world piercer's presence and the secret that the evil god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor used to be husband and wife as one, it was only natural that the Eternal Heaven Pearl would assume that the heaven-smiting devil emperor had survived the harsh world beyond the primal chaos due to the world piercer, and was making a return. Xianxia exhaled deeply when he recalled the colorless look in the Eternal Heaven God Emperor's eyes when he spoke of the Eternal Heaven General Assembly. Even the strongest existence in this world was powerless before a returning devil emperor. This Eternal Heaven General Assembly felt less like a resistance, more like a last-ditch effort to show that the denizens of this world wouldn't go quietly. A weak and helpless struggle. Coincidentally, I've obtained the qualification to head to the Eternal Heaven Realm from the Eternal Heaven God Emperor just now, said Xianxia with a frown. I will head to the Eternal Heaven Realm with Master as quickly as I can and stay there until the wall of primal chaos is completely broken. I've put all my trust in you. I hope that you can become the eternal glory of mankind and that the evil gods great will bring the light of salvation. While carrying the Ice Phoenix spirit's hopes and the duty and the burden of a savior, Xianxia bid her goodbye and floated back up to the surface. But Xianxia didn't leave the place immediately after he had jumped out of the heavenly Netherfrost lake. He simply stood in the middle of the lake and kept his eyes closed for a very long time. Everything he had learned from the Ice Phoenix had been a massive, no, unbearable blow to his psyche. He Ling, he said quietly, I haven't lived for a long time, but I think my life is packed with a little too much excitement. There's no point in worrying too much, Master, consoled He Ling gently. It's just like what you said earlier. Even if you fail, you'll still be able to protect yourself and the people around you. What's Hunger doing? She went to sleep after secretly eating a whole bunch of purple crystals, answered He Ling in a small voice. At number percent, again. Yun Qi's eyes turned round, but when he recalled that Hunger was the daughter of the evil god and the evil smiting devil emperor, he couldn't stop his mouth from twitching strongly. Whatever, it's just some purple crystals. Tell her that she can eat them all she wants from here on, including the swords. There's no reason in hiding them any longer, so just let her eat to her heart's content. We'll keep her as happy as we can during this period. Hugh? Yun Qi had always thought that Hunger was a little ancestor who needed to be pampered like a baby because she was prone to throwing a tantrum any time something didn't go her way. But now he knew that she wasn't just a little ancestor. She was the daughter between a creation god and a devil emperor, a super great level ancestor. If the heaven-smiting devil emperor were to learn that he was using her daughter as a sword, only God knows if she would smack him into dust on the spot. Well, she probably wouldn't. Their lives were tied to one another after all. Hunger has always been worry-free soul. She's happy as long as she's fed and allowed to sleep to her heart's content, said He Ling. You, on the other hand, Master, I can sense that your heart is burdened by a great weight. Are you worried that things won't go as you wish? Yun Qi tried to move the corner of his lips, but he found it impossible to smile at this moment. He said quietly, even if everything had gone perfectly and the best-case scenario is achieved, what does it matter? He Ling, the Ice Phoenix spirit had mentioned repeatedly that the current primal chaos is a world where gods aren't necessary and should not exist. Yun Qi looked towards the distance while feeling heavy. Considering the current state and laws of the primal chaos, will the world truly be peaceful even if the Devil Emperor decides not to scourge the world? If we are living in the ancient era right now, then of course the addition of a Devil Emperor wouldn't distort the world. But you've seen what has happened on Blue Pole Star and Snow Song Realm. The Devil Emperor aura leaking from the wall of primal chaos is barely noticeable, but the effect it has on the worlds is drastic enough already. Therefore, it is not hard to imagine that the current primal chaos cannot withstand the presence of a Devil Emperor at all. She is a disaster already just by existing in the primal chaos. If she stays here for too long, the laws and truths of the primal chaos might even collapse upon itself. In short, even the best-case scenario is accompanied by a calamity at an unpredictable scale. Master, He Ling whispered, at least you will be able to keep the damage to a minimum, right? If you succeed, you will still be the savior of the world. Yun Qi shook his head. There's no point in thinking too deeply into the future until after facing the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor. Right now, my biggest hope is that the heaven-smiting Devil Emperor the evil god loved so deeply will be a good-natured devil. Yun Qi flew out of the heavenly Netherfrost Lake and got ready to leave. But suddenly, he saw a strange light while he was turning around. Yun Qi paused in midair and subconsciously looked at the source of the light. Staring at a corner of the heavenly Netherfrost Lake, he said, "What's that?" Netherfrost Lake was extremely cold and yin-based. It had never frozen over before, and at the same time, it could also be said to be absolutely stainless and pure. Countless ice spirit danced above the heavenly lake, but he unwittingly noticed an irregular light amidst these ice spirits. The glinting reflection of light off the surface of ice. No matter how cold the lake water in the heavenly Netherfrost Lake became, it would never freeze over, so how could there be any ice for light to be reflected off of? Yun Qi immediately turned around. With a single flash, he had already arrived near the area where he had seen that icy glint. With a single glance, he noticed that there was, astonishingly enough, a large chunk of profound ice floating just beneath the surface of the heavenly lake. Light reflecting off of ice and the surface of water were very similar. If one did not pay attention, it would have been very hard to notice the existence of this block of profound ice. It was clear that this block of profound ice had been formed by very high-level cold energy, and it was able to exist in the heavenly Netherfrost Lake without becoming one with the lake itself. Other than that, this block of profound ice was not transparent, and it seemed to be filled with some sort of strange mist. However, Yun Qi was barely able to make out a human figure. What exactly was this? This block of profound ice was something that absolutely should not have existed in this place. The heavenly Netherfrost Lake was the most sacred and holy place in the Snow Song realm, So Mu Xuanyin definitely would not allow any foreign objects to contaminate even the smallest bit of air in this place, much less the waters of the heavenly lake itself. However, this bizarre block of profound ice could only have been placed here by Mu Xuanyin. Yun Qi's rationality won out, so he hesitated again and again, but he did not dare do anything reckless in the end. However, just as he was about to leave, his eyebrows suddenly gave a furious twitch. This was the aura of life? His gaze fiercely swiveled back towards the block of profound ice, drilling into the blurry figure within the profound ice. Not only did it possess an aura of life, it was clearly a human being's aura of life. There was actually a human trapped inside there, and it was a living, breathing human at that. Yun Qi's expression changed many times in that one instant. Due to his enormous curiosity, he finally waved a hand, hurling the block of profound ice far away from the waters of the lake, causing it to land on the lakeshore. With a flash, Yun Qi appeared in front of the block of profound ice. His palm descended, and following a flash of blue light, the profound ice immediately started to melt away layer by layer, gradually. A silhouette began to form out of that incredibly blurry figure, and it swiftly grew more and more clear. That was indeed a person. Furthermore, once the layers of ice had completely melted and that person's figure was fully revealed to Yun Qi, his eyes dramatically widened as he hastily retreated a few steps. For a moment there, he could not even believe his eyes. That person flopped to the ground. He was still alive, and he actually still had a trace of consciousness left as he lay curled up on the ground, shivering and painfully gasping for breath in a quavery voice. Moreover, Yun Qi recognized this person's figure and face with a single glance. Xing Kong, one of the Eastern Divine Region's 4 God Emperors, the Star God Emperor, and also the father of Jasmine and Keijai. Yun Qi was struck dumb, and he only recovered his senses after several breaths. The beard and hair of the person in front of him were no longer the pitch-black color they used to be. Instead, they had turned completely white, and his skin was now a deathly white tinged with green. His aura had also completely changed. He no longer even had the slightest trace of the majesty and dignity possessed by a God Emperor. In fact, he did not even have the slightest trace of a profound aura. However, although a person with no profound energy would have been killed instantly by the cold within the heavenly Netherfrost Lake, his body was filled with exceptionally dense spiritual energy, which stubbornly clung onto his life vein. Furthermore, it was clear that this spiritual energy had come from an external source, and it had forcefully allowed him to survive in this cruelly cold environment for a long period of time. This, coupled with his body, a body that had been tempered by enduring the power of a God Emperor for a long period of time, meant that he truly would not be able to die here even if he wished for it. If anyone saw him now, they would not be able to believe that he was actually one of the 4 emperors of the Eastern region, the Star God Emperor. However, Yun Qi's gaze went rigid, and he clenched his teeth tightly. No matter what kind of change he underwent, even if he was turned to ash, Yun Qi would never be able to mistake him for someone else. Xing Kong? Yun Qi's heart was filled with shock, but he said every single word through gritted teeth. Xing Kong turned around while shivering. When he saw Yun Qi, his entire body suddenly went rigid. Hai's pupils contracted as he spoke in a weak and terrified voice. Yun Qi. But immediately, the terror in his eyes actually turned into excitement. It was an exceptionally sorrowful and warped excitement at that. He desperately tried to drag his body towards Yun Qi, a body that was spasming due to being tortured by the cold, as he gasped. Ghost, you're a ghost. You've come here seeking this king's life. You have come here to take this king away, Yun Qi. Hurry up and bring me away. Hurry up and let me die. Kill me, hurry up and kill me. That trembling voice transformed into an impatient scream towards the end. His eyes shone with a nearly ecstatic light, as if death was the most beautiful thing in the world to him now. The astonished look in Yun Qi's eyes turned dark and sinister before turning back into a look of even greater astonishment after that. If one did not personally see this, no, even if one did personally see this, perhaps no one would dare to believe that this man, a God Emperor who used to command a vast king realm, a man who once stood at the peak of the universe, had actually fallen into such a state. His profound strength had been crippled, his mind was deranged, and he could not even die despite wishing for death. Who had the ability and gall to cripple the profound strength of a God Emperor? Even though Yun Qi did not know the history of the various large king realms, he could still be certain that Xing Kong was definitely the first God Emperor who had ever become a cripple. Moreover, the person who had crippled him was definitely the very first person who had ever crippled a God Emperor. However, Upon bearing witness to the utterly miserable appearance of a god emperor, Xianxia did not feel any pity even after he had recovered from his shock. Instead, the only thing that he felt in his heart was extreme joy. After he took a deep breath, Xianxia looked down and said in a cold voice, "Old villain Xing, to think that there would come a day where you ended up like this. It looks like even the heavens will grow eyes every now and then." "That's right, I am Xianxia. However, it's such a pity that I am not a ghost." Xing Jukong's mind was already clearly somewhat deranged, so it took several breaths before he responded to Xianxia's words. After that, his head jerked upwards as his widened eyes stared straight at Xianxia and trembled in their sockets. "Not a ghost? No, no, you clearly died. You had been completely destroyed. You did not even leave a body part behind." "Ha!" Xing Jukong's quivering words caused Xianxia's eyes to abruptly turn dark and vicious. He suddenly took a step forward as he stomped down on Xing Jukong's hand. Crack! With a crisp sound, Xing Jukong's right hand was completely shattered from finger bones to wrist, causing him to suddenly howl in pain. Xianxia did not lessen the pressure exerted by his foot as he stared coldly at Xing Jukong's face, which was warped in pain. He said, "Do you now know whether I am a ghost or not?" "You, arg!" Xing Jukong's entire body shook, but he still could not bring himself to believe that the person in front of him was Xianxia. To anyone else, if they saw that Xianxia had returned alive, they would merely think that the rumors of his death had been wrong. After all, none of them had personally witnessed Xianxia's death. But Xing Jukong had personally witnessed Xianxia turning to ash, personally saw that not even a single speck of him had remained. "Heh, there's no need to be so shocked," Xianxia said with a cold laugh. "If a beast like you, an animal inferior to even a dog or a pig, can survive for so long, then why can't I live until now? However, with that being said, it isn't bad to see you living in your current state." You! Xing Jukong's eyes continued to rapidly bulge. It was as if he simply could not believe that the person that had turned to ash right before his eyes was still alive. All of a sudden, his chaotic eyes once again gleamed with light. He stretched his other hand forward with much difficulty and grabbed Xianxia's leg. Kill me, you were killed by me. So you definitely must want to kill me, hurry up and kill me, hurry up, kill me and take your revenge." Bang. Xianxia's leg shot out, kicking him far away. He said in a deep voice, "No, for you to live in this state is an extremely good thing. It simply suits you far too well. Given all that you have done, if you were to die so easily, then the heavens would simply be blind. In this place, you have no power, you have no ambition, but you do have enough time to regret, to seek forgiveness and atonement, to live despite wishing to die." Even though Xing Jukong had already been reduced to such a miserable state, Xianxia could not contain the resentment and hatred in his words. The resentment and hatred still caused him to gnash his teeth in rage. "Don't you worry, I won't kill you. I'm just like Master. I'll make sure you stay alive and well, and the longer you live, the better. This is the end that you so richly deserve." With a low roar, Xianxia curled his hand into a claw. Blue light flashed, and he was prepared to reseal Xing Jukong inside profound ice. Wait a moment." Xing Jukong suddenly started to struggle and flail as he let out a yell in a voice that was even more hoarse than before. "The Star God Wheel, I beg you, take the Star God Wheel, please, I'm begging you." "Amen." Xianxia's hand stopped moving, but after that his eyes grew even colder. "The Star God Wheel. What sort of object is that? But do you think that I will follow your wishes? Just be good and get back into the ice." "Keijai, it's for Keijai." Xing Jukong suddenly roared out those words frantically, causing Xianxia's hand to come to a forceful stop at the very last moment. Upon seeing Xianxia stop his hand movements, Xing Jukong grew even more excited. He stretched out a trembling hand and pointed at his own chest as he said, "The Star God Wheel is in here, take it away, and pass it to Keijai quickly, quick." Xianxia's brows deeply furrowed. He did not know what the Star God Wheel was, and he was also completely disinterested in it. Even more than that, he did not want to follow any of the wishes of the Star God Emperor. But he still felt a very deep concern and guilt towards Keijai. It was not only because she was Jasmine's younger sister, it was also because he had completed a proper wedding ceremony with Keijai in the Star God realm all those years ago. They had done so in front of her mother's memorial tablet, with Jasmine standing witness to it. Even though it felt very empty and inauthentic, with just this alone, Keijai could indeed already be counted as his wife. He had also sworn in front of Jasmine that he would always accompany and protect Keijai in the future. Yet if it truly was an item that was very important to Keijai. Xianxia lowered his head and took a step forward, pointing a finger at Xing Jukong's chest. As expected, he discovered a very small, independent space inside of Xing Jukong's chest. He once possessed the strength of a god emperor, yet he actually hid this item in a space inside his own body. One could very well imagine just how important this thing was. This space had been created by Xing Jukong's god emperor power, and it was absolutely impossible for Yuan Qi to break into this space with his current power. However, Xing Jukong's profound strength had already dispersed a long time ago. This, coupled with the erosion caused by the cold energy in this place, meant that this space no longer had any residual strength since a long time ago. In fact, it was already teetering on the verge of collapse. Yuan Qi made a grasping motion with his hand, and he barely exerted any energy before his profound energy entered within. There was only a single object lying in this space. Yuan Qi fished it out, and a wheel that shone with starlight appeared in his hand. The wheel was not even 1 foot in diameter, and it felt like it hardly weighed anything. The surface of the wheel was wreathed by 12 clusters of sparkling light, each cluster radiating a different color. 4 of these lights were exceptionally dense. They looked just like burning candles. Yuan Qi stared at the wheel in his hand, his gaze unconsciously focusing on it. Although those 4 exceptionally dense clusters of starlight were very small, neither his sight or perception could penetrate them. It was as if those seemingly tiny clusters of starlight were concealing majestically vast and boundless worlds. "What is this? What does it have to do with Keja?" Yuan Qi asked in a deep voice. As he looked at the wheel in Yuan Qi's hand, the Star God Emperor's eyes became chaotic and blurry alternately, while his expression flickered between relaxed and pained. He said, "The Star God Wheel is the most important ancient divine artifact belonging to our Star God Emperor. As long as it exists, the Star God divine power will never be extinguished, and the Star God realm will also never collapse." Every single one of Xing Jukong's words trembled, and at some point in time, Yuan Qi's hand had started to fiercely clench. He suddenly understood what this thing was. It was actually the medium which contained the origin power of the Star God realm's 12 star gods. The 12 clusters of starlight gleaming on its surface represented the divine power of the 12 star gods. Furthermore, those 4 clusters of bizarrely dense light. They were lights that had returned to their places due to the fall of 4 star gods. These 4 clusters of starlight corresponded to the fallen heavenly origin, heavenly strength, heavenly poison, and the crippled heavenly chief, respectively. The most important reason for the Star God realm's strength was the existence of 12 star gods. Furthermore, after a star god fell or had reached the end of their natural lifespan, their corresponding star god divine power would not dissipate after that, and the origin power would return to the medium and find the next person compatible with its power. After that, the legacy would once again be transferred, and a new mighty star god would be born again in an extremely short period of time. In the upper star realms, nurturing a divine master required them to use all of their strength, and it still often depended on luck. However, in the star god realm, there would always exist the mighty 12 star gods, and the other king realms were the same as well. This was also precisely the reason why they were the king realms who had always stood at the peak of the primal chaos. When Yuan Qi first entered the God realm and heard Mu Xuanyin and Mu Bingyun talk about the king realms, he had found out about the existence of the legacies and the medium, but he never would have thought that this medium would actually be so small. No, compared to that, the one thing that had shaken him even more was that the foundation of the Star God realm's legacies, the powerful artifact that formed the core of the Star God realm, was actually being held by him at this very moment. Now that Yuan Qi had it in his hands, it meant that he was holding on to the Star God realm's lifeline, their future, their very fate and survival. The Star God Wheel, the most important item in the Star God realm, an item that they could not allow an outsider to come into contact with even if they themselves died. Yet Xing Jukong had handed it to Yuan Qi of his own accord. This was because he already had no other choice. Late TL note. After tealing this chapter, I realized that I can't remember if we did explain why some star god names got changed, so I'll just drop another note, just in case. First, the heavenly jade star god's name/title is Aster, and our dearly departed heavenly Aster star god's title is actually from the 36 heavenly stars of the 108 stars of destiny. Water margin/Suikoden fans, feel free to go crazy. So we are changing his star god title to heavenly strength star god. TLDR, Heavenly Aster Star God Right Arrow Heavenly Strength Star God. You're actually giving such an important thing to me? Yun-Chi held the star god wheel tightly, and even though it weighed nearly nothing, the entire destiny of a king realm was pressing down on his hand. If he did not give it to the star god realm, many years later, after the fall of the final star god, there would no longer be any star gods or star god realm in this universe. Xing Jukong's face twisted violently. How could he be willing to hand such a thing over to Yun-Chi? But he truly had no other choice in this matter. He said, "My divine power has already been crippled, so the star god wheel has already become a masterless object. Pass it to Keijai. Her compatibility with the heavenly wolf divine power surpasses even that of Zai Su's. Let her control the star god wheel and become the next star god emperor." Among all of the star gods, Keijai was the youngest, and she also had the shallowest experience. So she was not a person who was suitable to take over the star god wheel or take over as star god emperor. However, even though the star god emperor's mind was in a state of confusion and haziness, he could still understand that the only way he could get Yun-Chi to hand this item back to the star god realm was via Keijai. He. Yun-Chi let out a cold laugh. "Now that it has come to this, you actually still want to hold me hostage over my relationship with Keijai. And you still want Keijai to bear the future of the star god realm on her shoulders. Are you worthy? You're not worthy. You're not even worthy enough to mention her name." Xing Jukong's gaze drooped downwards and his lips trembled. The cold that pervaded his soul far exceeded the cold assailing his body. He said in a dejected tone, I know I'm not worthy of being a father. You're wrong." Yun-Chi coldly cut him off as he said, "It's not that you're not worthy of being a father, you're not worthy of being a human being. Zissou, Jasmine, Keijai, your own children by blood, each one more excellent than the next. They were rare treasures bestowed upon you by the heavens, rare treasures bestowed to the star god realm. But you, what did you do with them?" As Yun-Chi spoke, his hands unconsciously balled into fists, and he nearly could not stop himself from stomping Xing Jukong's head into paste. After he had found Yun Wuxin and became a father who had a daughter by his side, he was even more perplexed at how Xing Jukong, who was also a father, could actually do such things to his own children. After living for such a long period of time and reaching the ultimate pinnacle, would a human truly become like this? "Yes, I am not worthy. Not worthy to be a father, not worthy to be a human being," Xing Jukong said in a miserable voice. "But at the very least, I can't let the star god realm be destroyed by my own hands. I can't let down my ancestors and forefathers." Hey. It was as if Yun-Chi had heard a huge joke as he said, "To hear those words coming out of your mouth really is quite laughable. Just how exalted an existence was the previous star god realm. Yet it was destroyed and ruined in a single night. And who exactly was the main culprit behind all of this? You have already let down the ancestors and the forefathers of the star god realm long ago. And after you die, even if they have to barge into hell, they will still fight over who gets to rip you to shreds and make it so that you can never reincarnate." Xing Jukong's body went limp as it trembled, his eyes as gloomy and defeated as the eyes of a dead man. Yun-Chi raised his palm, his 5 fingers forming a claw. The star god wheel vanished in his hands and he turned around, not giving Xing Jukong another look. He coldly said, "Since this star god wheel is already in my hands, then whether I throw it away, destroy it, or give it to Keijai, I will make the final decision as to how it will be used in the future. As for you, even though I dearly want to break your bones and scatter your ashes, don't you worry, I won't be killing you. After all, when it comes to ties of family and blood, you are still Jasmine's and Keijai's birth father in the end. I don't want to become their father's murderer. However, I will also never tell them that you are here, because you are not worthy of even the slightest bit of worry or affection that they might have for you." When his voice fell, Yun-Chi made a grabbing motion as he swept his hand backwards. Cold ice instantly congealed around Xing Jukong, sealing him inside once more. With another wave of his hand, the newly formed profound ice once again flew into the heavenly Netherfrost lake, its position about the same as it had been before. "The star god emperor actually, your master, she..." Ling did not quite know how to express the rampant shock in her heart, without even taking into account Xing Jukong's originally formidable and peerless strength. Even if the star god realm had been destroyed by Jasmine, there would still have been quite a number of star gods and star god elders remaining, and they still remained an extremely terrifying power that no one would dare to provoke. But Xing Jukong had actually been crippled by someone, and he had even been thrown into this place, sealed in ice. He had not even been allowed to die. If this matter were to get out, they could not imagine just how huge the commotion would be. He should have been here since 3 years ago. Xianxia said in a low voice. Master was afraid that I would see him, so she only recently sealed him up and threw him into the heavenly lake. 3 years ago, even someone as strong as Yue Wuya had died at Jasmine's hands. So one could well imagine that Xing Jukong had definitely sustained some very serious injuries, and that his profound strength had been greatly damaged and depleted at that. This coupled with the despondency that struck the members of the Star God realm due its destruction. It was only at this time that Master could have possibly relied on moon-splitting Cascade to deal a critical blow to Xing Jukong and bring him here. But even then, she still had to take a huge risk. It looks like her hatred toward Xing Jukong had grown to its very limits back then, Xianxia said as he raised his head, the light in his eyes shaking for a long time. The only thing that could have enraged Mu Xuanyin, so was his death. Today, she had very nearly killed Luo Guxi in front of the eternal Heaven God Emperor just because Luo Guxi had nearly wounded him. Back then, she had actually brought the distinguished Star God Emperor to this place because of his death, leaving him in a state where he could not die despite wishing for death. If someone else had done these things, Xianxia would definitely have called her a lunatic, and he would have called her an extremely terrifying and complete lunatic at that. However, all of her thoroughly insane actions had been because of. Xianxia slowly shook his head, his heart surging like the ocean. He did not know what he had done to be treated by her in such a way. That Star God wheel, is Master going to hand it over to the Heavenly Wolf Star God once you found her? He Ling asked in a small voice. Of course not, Xianxia said without the slightest bit of hesitation. Keijai is still young and the state of her heart wasn't good in the first place. If I give this thing to her, it will only give her pressure and add to her burdens. I'll keep it with me first, and I'll pass it to Keijai once she's grown up. MN, Xianxia suddenly recalled what Xing Jukong just said. After he had been crippled, this Star God wheel suddenly became a masterless object. Then, if he figured out how to use it, did that mean that he could create 4 star gods? Of course, Xianxia was only thinking about it at the moment. How could it be so simple to get one's hands on the power of the star gods, on a king realm's legacy? Xianxia left the heavenly Netherfrost Lake and returned to the sacred hall, but he did not see Mu Xuanyin. Luo Guxi's arrival had created a huge catastrophe for the region around the Ice Phoenix realm. If Xia Qingyu and the eternal Heaven God Emperor had not sealed the fight away with their power, most of the Ice Phoenix realm would be buried by now, so this was something that she did have to handle personally. He did not take any independent action. He merely sat down on the ground and quietly waited for his master to return. In the midst of that quietude, the truth that had been told to him by the Ice Phoenix divine being, the duty that he shouldered now, the heaven-smiting devil emperor who was just around the corner, the destiny of the entire universe that was in flux right now, the unknowable future, Honger's and Yuer's shocking history. All of these things chaotically intermingled in his mind. He wanted to calm himself down and properly think about what he should do next, but the more he tried to calm himself, the more anxious and troubled his heart and soul became. Even the eternal Heaven God Emperor, whose experience and maturity were 1,000 times greater than his own, would be left in this state after hearing the truth, let alone Xianxia. Jasmine had said before that there were many things that happened to me that proved that I was practically a heaven-chosen person. At that time, I had thought she was making fun of me, but right now, it looks like it might just actually be true. There was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. The more one obtained, the more one had to pay. I have everything that I have right now because of the evil god's legacy, so I should have to take up the corresponding responsibilities and duties that come with it. But why me? On the night of his big wedding with Xia Qingyu, he had gone for a stroll in the mountains to enjoy the night breeze because of his troubled emotions. Instead, he had ended up picking up the Jasmine who had been afflicted by the absolute god-slaying poison, and he had obtained the evil god's profound veins because of Jasmine. After that, he had obtained one of the evil god's powers after the other. The evil god Fire Seed, the evil god Water Seed, the evil god Lightning Seed, and the evil god Darkness Seed. He had also met the 2 of the evil god's daughters, Honger and Yuer. Moreover, all of these things, whether it was the evil god Seeds or Honger and Yuer, they were not something he had found after expending a great amount of effort. They had all voluntarily appeared in his life, one coincidence after another. Was there truly such a thing as the guidance of fate? But the problem here was that all of his thoughts and actions had been completely born out of his own will. He had never felt that he was being interfered with or controlled in any manner whatsoever. Yun-Chi silently pondered all of these things as his thoughts turned from confusion to haziness. Before he knew it, it turned into complete stillness, and he actually dozed off like this. And he had a really strange dream after that. Yuanba, you've saved me once again. Wah, I feel like you've become a lot more powerful. They had so many people, but you beat nearly all of them in a few moves. The him in his dream looked to be only about 11 or 12 years old. His outer garments were messed up and dirty, and there was dirt smeared all over his face. It was clear that he had just been bullied. This was when he was still young, so it was something that happened all too often. As a result, he very rarely left the house by himself, and after that, he very rarely left Xiao Lingxi's side. Heh heh heh. Xia Yuanba, who was a year younger than him, gave a very pleased laugh. He waved his arms, stirring up a current of profound energy as he said, "But of course, just the previous day I broke through yet again. Right now I'm already at the 7th level of the elementary profound realm, and I gave my father a big shock. Right now, even if adults want to bully you, I can also defeat them." Little Yun-Chi's eyes widened dramatically as his mouth went slack. Even though his profound veins were crippled, he was also aware of how shocking it was to have reached the 7th level of the elementary profound realm at just 10 years of age. At the very least, there was absolutely no one in the Xiao clan that he was from that could accomplish such a thing. He said, "Yuanba, you're really way too awesome. Grandfather said that you're the #1 genius in Floating Cloud City, a genius that our Floating Cloud City might not produce again even after 1,000 years. He also said that you might very well shake up the entire Blue Wind Nation in the future. I really envy you." Heh heh. Little Xia Yuanba gave a rather embarrassed chuckle as he sat down in front of Yun-Chi and said, "Actually, I'm the one who envies you. You already have a little aunt and you can do everything together. But as for me, mother passed away early and I'm the only person in the house. I don't even have any brothers or sisters. If I had a big brother or sister, or even a little brother or sister, then I wouldn't feel so lonely and bored anymore. Then ask Uncle Xia to marry a few new concubines so that you can have lots of brothers and sisters," little Yun-Chi said. "My father just doesn't want to," little Xia Yuanba said in a gloomy voice. "Every year there are many people who are trying to get my father to take new concubines, but my father won't relent no matter what. My grandfather is also the same," little Yun-Chi said with a nod of his head. Even though he was still really little, he seemed to somewhat understand this. He continued, "However, even if Uncle Xia doesn't take any new concubines, it's fine as well. I can be your big brother. I mean, I'm already older than you. It's just that everyone says that I'm a cripple, so I need to rely on you to protect me instead." "Ahaha, leave it to me," little Yuanba said as he thumped his chest. "My father said that he would send me to New Moon Profound Palace after a few years. Given my natural aptitude, as long as work a little harder, I will very quickly earn the right to enter the Blue Wind Profound Palace. At that time, I'll see who still dares to bully you." Heh heh, right now I feel like those bad people aren't scary at all. Yun-Chi gave a happy laugh as he wiped the dirt off his face. He looked Xia Yuanba up and down before he said in a worried voice, "Yuanba, you look like you've gotten a lot thinner again. Is it because you're cultivating too hard?" Little Yuanba looked down at his own body, a body that was indeed far too skinny. He stretched out a hand to scratch his head as he said, "I don't even cultivate for 2 hours every day, so it's not hard at all. Furthermore, I eat a huge amount of food, so I don't know why I'm still so skinny. My father has even brought me to see a doctor quite a few times, but they all said that there was nothing wrong with my body. It has to be because you're still eating too little. You need to eat even more in the future." Little Yun-Chi urged him earnestly. "I got it. I'll try eating a little bit more than I already am," little Yuanba said as he nodded his head. It was very clear that he was also quite dissatisfied with his weak and skinny body, even though his appetite was actually several times greater than his father's already. "Chi, I just remembered that it will be your 11th birthday just 6 days from now. I haven't even thought of what present to get you yet." Once little Yuanba said this, he suddenly seemed to recall something. His eyes grew bright as he said, Right. I remember that you and that beautiful big sister from the Lord Governor's house were betrothed at birth, and it was agreed that both of you would be married once you hit 16 years of age. My father mentioned this to me so many times, but now that I think about it, there's only 5 years left till then. Time passes so fast." Little Xia Yuanba tilted his head as he spoke. It was as if he was imagining what Yun-Chi would look like after marriage. When they spoke of this matter, little Yun-Chi did not seem to express much excitement or expectation. On the contrary, he cut a rather despondent figure as he said, "Oh, her. I have this feeling that she practically hates me. Every time she sees me, there'll be a very fierce look on her face, and she will very quickly run really far away to hide somewhere." "Ah," little Yuanba said in a puzzled voice, "could it be that she's being shy?" "As if," little Yun-Chi said with a shake of his head. "Actually, I think I kinda know what's happening. When she and I were betrothed at birth all those years ago, my father and mother were still around. Furthermore, at that time, not only was my grandfather really powerful, but my daddy was also super-duper powerful." MNN? Little Xia Yuanba immediately nodded his head as he said, "I heard father say many times that if Uncle Zio was still alive, he would definitely have become the next family head of the Zio clan. MN. So at that time, the Lord Governor was very happy with this arrangement, and he must have boasted about this thing to the public for a very long time, however. My father and mother soon passed away, and it was discovered that I was a cripple. So everything is different now. Moreover, just last month, I secretly heard Elder Zio Gu from the infirmary say that the Lord Governor had been in constant communication with the clan master recently. It seems that he is thinking of marrying her off to big brother Yulong instead, and the clan master also seems to be in full agreement." Little Yun-Chi let out a soft sigh, his expression colored by melancholy and disappointment that did not suit his age. "HMPH, so what?" Little Xia Yuanba seethed in an indignant voice. "Your betrothal to the big sister from the governor's family is something that even I, a little kid, knows about. He is the governor, so if he doesn't keep his word, the entire city will make him into a joke. After that, we'll see if he still has the face to continue being governor." Little Chi, where are you?" The worried voice of a girl suddenly rang out in the distance. Upon hearing that voice, little Yun-Chi immediately stood up and said in a rather panicked voice, "Oh crap, it's little Aunt. If she finds out I got bullied by other people, she will definitely become very angry." "Ah!" Little Xia Yuanba hurriedly got to his feet as well. A light bulb suddenly went off in his head as he said, Then how about you say that you accidentally fell into a mud pit while you were playing with me, and that's why you look like this?" "Ooh, then let's go with that," little Yun-Chi said as he nodded his head. After that, he grabbed up his clothes and ran in the direction where the girl's voice had come from as he said, "Yuanba, I'm heading back first. Let's play again next time." With a jolt, Yun-Chi was roused from the dream. He was still sitting down on the floor of the sacred hall, and an endless amount of flying snow quietly danced in the air outside. Yun-Chi stretched out a hand and pressed it against his head. Weird. How did I suddenly fall asleep just now? Could it have been because he was in the sacred hall and his mind and heart were not guarded at all? So he became overly relaxed and had fallen into a deep and peaceful slumber as a result. Furthermore, he had even dreamed up quite the strange dream. In his dream, he had seen a scene of when he and Xia Yuanba were still little. But what was strange was that the Xia Yuanba in his dream had a shockingly high aptitude in the profound way, and he was even more talented than his big sister, Xia Qingyu. Furthermore, not only was his body not big and sturdy, it had been exceptionally skinny at that. Other than that, he did not have any siblings, which also meant that Xia Qingyu had not existed in that dream. What was even more ridiculous was that the person he had been betrothed to at birth had not been Xia Qingyu. It had been some big sister from the governor's family, whose very name had been blurred out. Yun-Chi shook his head as he unwittingly let out a laugh. He laughed at himself for actually being able to randomly have such a strange and absurd dream. Furthermore, he could actually remember all too clearly every single scene of that dream, every single word that he had said. In fact, his memories were so clear that it seemed as if those scenes had actually played out in real life. However, since it was a dream, then any sort of absurd scenario could appear. Yun-Chi also did not have any time to waste on some ridiculous and random dream. His thoughts swiftly turned to the crimson calamity that was knocking on their doorstep, and he once again entered a state of deep thought. He was unable to tell how long he had slept for or how long he had been waiting in the sacred hall, but Mu Xuanyin still had not returned. Under the impact of that terrifying truth and the unknowable future, even though Yun-Chi continuously sought to settle his heart and mind for a long time, they were still restless. In the end, he gave a sigh before he turned his gaze to the outside world. As he thought of the years he had spent in the Snow Song realm, he finally could not help but get up and walk towards the outside. When he had first arrived in the Snow Song realm, Mu Bingyun had arranged for him to stay in the freezing snow hall, but she had been obstructed by main hall master Mu Fengshu. He had forcefully broken through the examination, shocking everyone present and causing a string of disturbances to break out. Mu Bingyun had also been able to use this as a pretext to directly bring him into the 36th Ice Phoenix Palace. At that time, Mu Bingyun was not long for this world because of the poison that had afflicted her for 1,000 years. So the 36th Ice Phoenix Palace existed in name only, and it only had Mu Xuanyin as a disciple, with Xianxia becoming the second one. But today, following the recovery of Mu Bingyun's power, her strength was second only to Mu Xuanyin in the entire Snow Song realm. So she had officially become the main palace master of all 36 Ice Phoenix palaces. Even though it was the starting point of his journey, he did not know how the 36th Ice Phoenix Palace was doing now. It should be exceptionally bustling and lively, and it definitely should not be losing to any of the other Ice Phoenix palaces, right? As Xianxia thought of this, he had already unknowingly arrived in the air above the area which housed the Ice Phoenix palaces. The area which housed the Ice Phoenix palaces was still as exceptionally quiet as it had been before, and flying snow filled the air, just like in the region around the sacred hall. But it seemed as if this silence was somewhat different from before. In the distance, the figures of several Ice Phoenix disciples were rushing towards the east with obvious haste. Mn. Xianxia's brows twitched, and he swiftly expanded his spiritual perception. Very quickly, in an area not too far east of him, he sensed a bunch of incomparably chaotic auras. That was in the direction of Mist End Valley. Mist End Valley was a place within the Ice Phoenix realm, but it was not a training ground. Instead, it was a place where disciples who had committed unforgivable crimes were punished. Back then, when he had fought with Mu Xuanyin, he had relied on the dragon's soul domain that had burst out in that instant, and he had accidentally touched a part of her that he absolutely should not have touched. After that, Mu Xuanyin had thrown him into Mist End Valley. As a result, he was deeply aware of how terrifying Mist End Valley was. There were many species of profound beasts living in that place, and they all lived in concentrated areas. At first, before he had accidentally managed to comprehend the moon-splitting cascades, invisibility, every step he had taken in that place was a step filled with terror, and he had very nearly thrown away his life on more than one occasion. And that was when he had been in the outer ring of Mist End Valley, where the profound beasts were the weakest. This situation, could it be that a large profound beast rampage had suddenly erupted in Mist End Valley? It was clear that Mu Xuanyin and Mu Bingyun both were not around. Xianxia had no time to think any further. He increased his speed to its maximum, rushing for Mist End Valley. Mist End Valley was in utter chaos as the roars of profound beasts and the shocked cries of Ice Phoenix disciples shook the air. When the profound beast rampages had started occurring last year, the first thing Mu Xuanyin did was to order that a barrier be erected around Mist End Valley to seal it away. As a result, nothing had occurred in Mist End Valley for the past year. But just now, the barrier that was exceptionally sturdy had suddenly collapsed without any warning, and countless frenzied profound beasts rushed out of Mist End Valley like surging ocean tides. Profound beast rampages were erupting everywhere in the Snow Song realm, and the Ice Phoenix palaces were constantly sent out of the sect to suppress them. So not more than half of them remained to guard the sect at any one time. This, coupled with the huge calamity that Luo Guxi had created upon her arrival, meant that most of the Ice Phoenix Palace elders and disciples were out doing clean-up duty. However, there were still more than enough of them to quell the chaos that had erupted out of Mist End Valley after the barrier had collapsed. When Xianxia arrived in the air above Mist End Valley, icy glints filled the air below him, but the battlefield was not quite as big as he had first imagined. The barrier that sealed in Mist End Valley had not completely collapsed either. It was just that a large hole had been punched in it, and even though the beast tide surged out of it violently, the Ice Phoenix disciples beat them back handily, wave after wave. Furthermore, there were still 3 palace masters from the Ice Phoenix Palace. Xianxia immediately grew relieved. After all, this place was the core location of the Snow Song realm's strongest sect. Even though the profound beasts of Mist End Valley were exceedingly terrifying, how could they truly harm the sect? With 3 Ice Phoenix Palace masters around, they could combine their strength to repair the barrier once they had exterminated the rampaging profound beasts. No wonder they only mobilized the Ice Phoenix Palace, and they did not ask for any reinforcements from the Divine Hall elders or disciples. There were indeed enough forces to deal with the situation. Xianxia's gaze swept across the area, and to his surprise, he discovered a familiar figure. Mu Xuanyin. It was clear that she had been working hard over the past few years, and she had already broken into the divine soul realm now. Furthermore, because she was Mu Bingyun's only direct disciple, the Ice Phoenix God investiture canon that she displayed was several steps above the other Ice Phoenix Palace disciples. Clearly, Mu Bingyun had bestowed upon her even more of the Ice Phoenix bloodline. Even though he had not seen her for a few years, Mu Xuanyin's appearance had basically remained the same, besides the fact that her chest had clearly swelled up by quite a bit, and that she had lost a lot of her simple nature and immaturity. Her eyes had also grown colder and more imposing than before, and her icy sword danced with a vicious mercilessness as it nimbly dealt out death to one frenzied, profound beast after the other. When he recalled the times he had spent with her when he had first arrived in the Snow Song realm, Yun Qi's heart was filled with gratitude. He did not show himself, and he was no longer worried either as he prepared to leave the area. It was just when he had turned around that his brows suddenly twitched and he swiveled around again. He looked toward the depths of Mist End Valley, and in the next instant, his eyebrows sank as he muttered in a low voice. No wonder the barrier broke. In the end, the Ice Phoenix palaces were made up of the elite disciples of the Ice Phoenix sect. Amidst the chaotic, profound lights and the sounds of battle, the profound beast horde was being beaten back again and again. With the addition of 3 great palace masters, the Ice Phoenix disciples had not even suffered many casualties, and the ground was littered with the bodies of various profound beasts, their blood dyeing the snow region red, the sight of it shocking and unpleasant to the eyes. If it continued on like this, in another hour, the profound beast rampage that erupted out of Mist End Valley would be completely suppressed, and after they resealed the barrier, there would not be any more eruptions in the foreseeable future. However, it was just at this time that a strangely shocking roar suddenly rang out from the depths of Mist End Valley. When the roar had first rung out, it had come from an extremely far distance. But when it fell on their ears now, it actually sounded like it was right next to them. Following that, another roar rang out, and it was like a thunderclap that shook the air, causing the earth to move and the mountains to sway. The Ice Phoenix disciples, who were presently suppressing the profound beasts, felt their bodies shake violently. There was a ringing in their ears, and as their vision went black for an instant, blood leaked out of all the orifices on their faces. Looks of astonishment appeared on the faces of all 3 Ice Phoenix Palace masters who stood at the forefront of the battle. After that, their expressions dramatically changed due to even more shock as they exclaimed, "Wild Snow Divine Apes!" That pair of wild snow divine apes had been tamed hundreds of years ago, and they had been the guardian king beasts who had always guarded Mist End Valley in the years past. Could it be that even they have been? Amidst their shock and confusion, 2 huge figures bust out of the dense fog. Their eyes, which usually shone with an exceptionally calm light, were now filled with shocking malice and frenzy. The Ice Phoenix Palace Master in the middle roared, "Wild Snow Divine Apes, both of you!" Just as she spoke, an earth-shaking roar filled her ears. The 2 Wild Snow Divine Apes did not say a single word, they simply hurtled towards them while they roared. 2 huge energy waves exploded in the air, each covering a 50-kilometer radius. The nerves of the other 2 Ice Phoenix Palace Masters had long been drawn taut. Their expressions suddenly changed, yet they reacted instantly. Their swords formed 2 formations which intertwined in midair as they met the 2 onrushing Wild Snow Divine Apes head-on. "Wait a minute! Don't harm the disciples!" The Ice Phoenix Palace Master in the middle cried out in alarm. This yell caused the pupils of the 2 other Ice Phoenix Palace Masters to immediately constrict. The profound strength of all 3 people were at the Divine King realm, and these 2 Wild Snow Divine Apes were also powerful Divine King beasts. But around them, the majority of the Ice Phoenix disciples were only at the Divine Tribulation realm at best. If the powers of 5 Divine Kings were to directly clash with one another, the aftershocks would instantly eradicate countless Ice Phoenix disciples. Masters no longer had any time to think as they forcefully shifted their energy to defend instead of attack. With a dull echo, the sky suddenly darkened, and the power of the Wild Snow Divine Ape was greatly suppressed by the 2 great Ice Phoenix Palace Masters. But in the next instant, they let out simultaneous muffled groans as they were fiercely batted aside and sent hurtling to the ground. At the same time, a second Wild Snow Divine Ape dropped down with a force that could destroy the heavens. This is bad," the 2 Ice Phoenix Palace Masters, who had been blasted aside, exclaimed as their faces turned pale with shock. "Quickly get away!" The third Ice Phoenix Palace Master roared as he swiftly rushed toward the second Wild Snow Divine Ape. His sword flashed like an icy rainbow, but it was still unable to fully suppress the terrifying strength of the Wild Snow Divine Ape. The moment this power was sent crashing down, more than 1,000 Ice Phoenix disciples would die a horrible death. The sky turned dusky, and before that enormous force had even hit the ground, an overwhelming sense of doom seemed to shatter the souls of most of the Ice Phoenix disciples. Uncountable cries of terror rang out. Below, Mu Xuanyin, who had just put on an impressive show, was now on her knees, her beautiful appearance turned ugly. She wanted to flee, but under the oppressive might of a divine king, even taking a small step would be nothing more than an extravagant hope. The other Ice Phoenix disciples around her felt the same way. Many of them had closed their eyes and resigned themselves to fate. The three Ice Phoenix Palace Masters gritted their teeth hard enough to break them, but they were powerless to do anything. They were already extremely regretful that they had underestimated the profound beast rampage that had erupted in this area, and had not asked for reinforcements from the Sacred Hall. They should have realized long ago that there was no way that the barrier would have been destroyed by these frenzied, profound beasts alone. But it was at this moment that the dusky sky was suddenly lit up by an incomparably bright and fiery light. This light was accompanied by the resonant cry of a phoenix. A flaming image of a phoenix swooped down from above and crashed into the Wild Snow Divine Ape. In the blink of an eye, the immense divine king power and oppressive aura of death that was coming from the Wild Snow Divine Ape had been completely extinguished. Its whole body was ignited in flames, and it let out a miserable roar as it was sent flying into the distance. At the same time, an icy beam flashed through the air and opened up a gigantic frozen end barrier instantly. The barrier blocked off all remaining aftershocks left by the attack, ensuring that not a single Ice Phoenix disciple below had been harmed. The danger that had originally caused them to despair had suddenly disappeared just like that, leaving everyone dumbfounded for a second. Mu Xuanyin, who still could not quite believe what had just happened, raised her head and saw Xianxia's figure. Senior brother Yun," she shouted in surprise and joy, tears about to burst forth from her eyes. Xianxia made a grasping motion with his hand, fixing the frozen end barrier in midair. There were no signs of it dissipating at all. Meanwhile, he swiftly flew forward. "3 Palace Masters, please protect everyone. Leave the 2 Divine King Giant Apes to me." Bang! Everything had happened in an instant, and it was only at this moment that the 2 Ice Phoenix Palace Masters, who had been blasted away, had landed heavily on the ground. They leapt to their feet, their complexions dramatically changed. But before they could even reply, a beam of fiery light had already heavily exploded against the body of one of the Wild Snow Divine Apes. Fire was the natural bane of these ice-type profound beasts, let alone Xianxia's phoenix flame. As they were being bathed in scarlet flames, the 2 Wild Snow Divine Apes were forced to retreat by scores of kilometers. It was also as if the cold might radiating from their bodies had been incinerated by those flames, leaving them a complete mess. They had already lost all of their rationality in the first place, and they had now gone completely berserk due to the pain. 2 Divine King auras firmly locked onto Xianxia's body. With a swing of their enormous arms, they lifted up a 3,000-meter tall glacier and sent it hurtling toward Xianxia. Xianxia swiftly gauged the distance between himself and the edges of Mist End Valley and was immediately relieved. He stretched out his arms, his phoenix flames turning into the golden crow flames that burned even hotter. After that, a fiery sword burst out of his hand and made a horizontal slash. A pale golden arc of light was suddenly carved across the world of Mist End Valley, which had been pale white since ancient times. The flaming sword cut through the glacier and even passed through one of the Wild Snow Divine Apes, causing a golden line to appear on the both of them simultaneously. In an instant, the glacier was broken, but at that moment, as it was about to collapse, it turned into mist which filled the sky. In the next moment, even the mist had disappeared without a trace. The upper half of the Wild Snow Divine Ape's massive body slid across the golden line and fell. It let out a despairing howl as its bisected body was buried by suddenly erupting golden flames and swiftly turned to ash. The Wild Snow Divine Ape was still a divine king beast after all. Though it had grown violent due to the influence of the Crimson Calamity, it should not have gone completely insane like those low-level profound beasts. The 2 Wild Snow Divine Beasts were originally a pair and had guarded the Mist End Valley for many years. When first one fell, The other immediately gave out a mournful howl filled with incomparable despair and pain. It went completely insane, launching its gigantic body towards Xianxia. Xianxia's brows tightened slightly. Those Ice Phoenix's disciples were still too close. He could not retreat, neither could he drag this battle out. He made a prompt decision. With a wave of his arm, the heaven-smiting sword appeared, and he welcomed that beast with a wild fang. The heaven-smiting sword broke through the wild snow divine ape's energy storm as it heavily smashed into its chest. After that, the image of an enormous azure wolf instantly flashed into life across its chest, as it let out a howl that could cow all of creation. Bang! A long trail of blue light dragged behind Xianxia as he brandished the heaven-smiting sword and cut across the body of the wild snow divine ape. The trail of blue light dragged on for several kilometers behind the wild snow divine ape, before finally coming to an end. A massive hole was carved into the center of the wild snow divine ape's body. Everything in the world froze at this moment, and following that, the frenzied light in the wild snow divine ape's eyes began to slowly dissipate as it turned into relief and sorrow. Countless cracks spread out swiftly from the center of the hole in its chest before they covered its entire body. Following that, it broke apart like an ice sculpture that had been completely shattered, shattering into countless snow-white fragments that fell from the sky. The heaven-smiting sword disappeared from Xianxia's hand, and he heaved a long sigh of relief. So as to not affect the rest of the Ice Phoenix disciples, he could only end the battle swiftly. But when the wild snow divine ape had died, he could feel its sadness, pain, and relief. This rampage of theirs had not been born out of their own desires. It had happened entirely due to the influence of that terrifying aura which should not have existed in this world. By comparison, they were actually the greatest victims. Following the extermination of the two wild snow divine apes, this chaos that suddenly erupted should have finally come to an end. However, Xianxia's heart had grown heavier instead. The return of the Devil Emperor, just what would become of the future world. On the other side, the three Ice Phoenix Palace Masters had just soared into the air. Before they could erect a barrier, the two terrifying, outstanding wild snow divine apes had already been exterminated. Their hands stopped in midair as three jaws dropped open simultaneously, unable to close for a long time. The Ice Phoenix disciples below were all sluggish and lifeless, unable to recover for a long while. The last time they witnessed Xianxia's strength was at the Profound God Convention 4 years ago, where he had defeated the Luo Changsheng, who had just entered the Divine King realm. And now, when facing off with two Divine King giant beasts, he simply finished them off just like that. After his body flashed a few times, Xianxia had already arrived in front of the three Ice Phoenix Palace Masters. Then he spoke. Even though it's a pity, the situation was critical, so I had no choice but to kill them off immediately. I'll have to trouble the three palace masters to deal with the cleanup. They stared at Xianxia for a good long while before finally recovering. Xianxia, you have already become a divine king. Amen. Xianxia nodded his head. I have something urgent to attend to, so I can't stay any longer, farewell. With those words, he immediately turned around and flew away, leaving the three Ice Phoenix Palace Masters with stupefied looks on their faces. 4 years ago, during the final fight of the conferred god battle, Xianxia had entered the divine spirit realm after enduring a 9-stage heavenly tribulation. Furthermore, everyone knew that he had not entered the eternal heaven divine realm. However, just 4 years had passed. They simply could not imagine how Xianxia, who had not even entered the eternal heaven divine realm, could have become a divine king in the short span of 4 years. If they knew that Xianxia had actually already become a divine king 3 years ago, they would have been shocked out of their skulls. Senior brother Yun, hey, wait for me. Xianxia had not gone far when he heard frantic shouts of a girl rang out behind him. Xianxia stopped, and behind him, Mu Xuanyin, who was chasing after him with great effort, gasped for breath and asked in an annoyed voice, why are you running away so quickly? Amen. Xianxia grasped his lower jaw as he scrutinized her carefully. Isn't this senior sister Xuanyin? It's only been a few years since we last met, but you've grown up so fast. Although she had already heard that Xianxia had returned alive upon seeing him, and at such a close distance at that, Mu Xuanyin's eyes brimmed with unrestrained emotions. HMPH, rubbish. My looks have not changed over the years, okay? Rather, it's you. As she was talking, she found that Xianxia's gaze was rather crooked. Its direction was astonishingly enough aimed at her chest, the smile on his face unspeakably lewd. She reacted suddenly, and with a sudden squeal, she unconsciously brought her arms up to hug her chest as her face turned red and she sputtered out. You're now already an important figure, but your personality still has not changed one bit. But of course. Xianxia replied cheerily, I happen to be the person who you said was the most despicable, shameless, and vulgar person that you had ever met. Something like personality wouldn't change after 80 or 100 years, let alone 4 or 5 years, right? Even though he had clearly already reached the point where his name shook the entire god realm, his current behavior was even worse than it was back then. However, what greatly surprised Xianxia was that Mu Xuanyin did not run away in a huff of anger and embarrassment like she used to. Instead, she suddenly lowered the arms that covered her chest and laughed. Senior brother Xianxia, would you like to check for yourself to see if I have grown up or not? Xianxia was instantly shocked. The FCK? What was going on with this lass? It's only been a few years since we've last seen each other, but she knows how to tease someone back now. But what had Xianxia not seen before? After that second of surprise, a sharp glint instantly flashed in his eyes, and the shock disappeared from his face. Good. I'm an expert at ascertaining such things. If I say I'm number 2 in all of Snow Song Realm, no one would dare claim to be number 1. Mu Xuanyin? MN. Just from the looks of it, senior sister Xuanyin has indeed grown up quickly, and you do indeed possess a lot of potential. In the future, you may even catch up to half of your master's potential, heh. Mu Xuanyin? Xianxia said this cheerily while stretching his arms out wide. His fingers arched into claws, and he looked like he was about to pounce on her. But what made him even more surprised was that Mu Xuanyin was actually still smiling widely, and it looked like she did not have any intention to turn hostile or dodge his grasp at all. MN, something doesn't seem right. His heart tightened, and he subconsciously turned around abruptly. A snowy figure of absolute beauty was right behind him, no more than 30-odd meters away. Her countenance like the first snow, her eyes like a pair of deep pools, not emitting a single sound. Mu Bingyun. At number percent. Xianxia retracted his fingers at lightning speed and swiftly turned around to bow. His face was serene and respectful, but his words had a slight tremor to them. Disciple Xianxia greets Palace Master Bingyun. Master. Mu Xuanyin's icy figure flashed as she moved to stand beside Mu Bingyun. Her delicate head hung down slightly, with an obedient and shy expression on her face. But in the next moment, she suddenly lifted her hand and covered her mouth with it. Her body trembled, and it took all of her might to not laugh out loud. Mu Bingyun glanced at him and said, Your master is waiting for you at the sacred hall. Go and see her. Her words were always so cold yet gentle, just like the gentle, endless flying snow in this snow region. Yes, Xianxia agreed. This disciple will go now. After that, he raised his head and said anxiously, Palace Master Bingyun, just now, senior sister Xuanyin and I. No, junior sister Xuanyin and. It seemed like he wanted to explain something, but when the words left his mouth, he found that whatever he said would only make things worse. He glared at Mu Xuanyin from the corner of his eye as he gnashed his teeth and thought, Just you wait, little girl. If I don't strip you naked and throw you into the heavenly lake, my surname won't be Yun anymore. She had once been such an innocent and cute little girl. Could it be that girls all become so terrifying when they grow up? Mu Bingyun did not say a word, but she merely shot Xianxia a dull glance before leaving with Mu Xuanyin. That particular glance left Xianxia stumped, and he stood rooted to the ground for quite a long while. He saw Mu Xuanyin waiting for him as he expected her to be. She didn't ask what had happened in Mist End Valley. Have you gotten your answer? Xianxia had just gotten to his knees when the question came. Yes, master. This disciple has gotten his answer and many more terrifying truths that are beyond his expectation. He didn't hesitate for too long before he started telling Mu Xuanyin everything. He began from the tale of the heaven-smiting devil race being exiled to the world beyond by Mo-Yi using the ancestral sword, to the truth behind the incident, and finally the reason why the Crimson Calamity had appeared. Even if he didn't tell her now, the eternal heaven god emperor would have announced the truth of the Crimson Calamity to everyone during the eternal heaven general assembly anyway. When Mu Xuanyin heard that the heretic god and the heaven-smiting devil emperor had broken the taboo and secretly gotten married to each other, her pupils colored with deep shock by the time Xianxia was done speaking. Her standing posture had largely changed, and her eyes were heavy with emotion. Silence reigned in the sacred hall for a very long time after Xianxia was done telling everything. The return of an ancient devil emperor was without a doubt 1,000,000 times worse than any nightmare the denizens of the current world could conjure. It was much, much worse than the worst disaster anyone could ever imagine. Xianxia was the source, and Mu Xuanyin was the receiver. But even then, it took her a long time before she managed to calm herself down. "Are you absolutely certain that everything you said is the truth?" Mu Xuanyin finally opened her mouth, but it was clear that she was still having a hard time believing her own ears. That was what the Ice Phoenix divine being told this disciple. And now that I think back, some of my past experiences after I'd inherited the heretic god's divine power seemed to prove these assumptions. Therefore, it's probably the truth. Xianxia continued. Since the Eternal Heaven Realm was able to sense the world piercer thanks to the Eternal Heaven Pearl, the Eternal Heaven God Emperor should know the truth as well. It's very likely that he will announce it during the Eternal Heaven General Assembly. Mu Xuanyin fell silent for a very long time again. If everything Xianxia had told her was true, if a devil emperor really was returning to the primal chaos, then this was a calamity that no power in the entire universe could possibly resist. Not even for a bit. It was only natural for a devil emperor, for anyone who had accumulated several million years' worth of hatred, to vent on a different target, the world, after discovering that both the gods and the devils of the primal chaos were all dead. As for the best-case scenario, "Master," Xianxia said in a low voice as he observed Mu Xuanyin's expression, "this disciple has obtained permission to attend the Eternal Heaven General Assembly when he was purifying the devilish aura in the Eternal Heaven God Emperor's body just now. Therefore, please allow me to accompany you on the day of the Eternal Heaven General Assembly. This matter relates to the entire God realm, the future of the primal chaos, and the safety of the Snow Song realm. This disciple simply must try to face the heaven-smiting devil emperor at least." Mu Xuanyin shot Xianxia a sideways glance. Here was a man who needed constant protection from her, asking to face an ancient devil emperor who was so powerful that the mere thought chilled even her. She could not imagine what would happen when they actually met face to face. "All right, I will bring you to the Eternal Heaven Realm, but you must stay here until the day of the departure." Mu Xuanyin turned away from Xianxia and allowed her mask to slip for a couple of breaths' time. To the primal chaos, the arrival of a devil emperor was without doubt a terrible disaster. The fate of the entire world would be overturned, and nothing would ever be the same. But to Xianxia, and Xianxia alone, this was an opportunity to change fates. Not just the world's, but also his own fate. Xianxia stood up when a sudden thought struck him. He blurted without thinking, "There is one more thing, Master. Back at the heavenly Netherfrost Lake, this disciple has found the... He was already regretting his slip of the tongue when he opened his mouth, and he literally could not finish his last sentence when the magnitude of his blunder hit him. "Mu Xuanyin, Xianxia, you didn't see anything, did you?" Mu Xuanyin still hadn't turned around to face him, so Xianxia couldn't see her expression when she said those words. Xianxia quickly replied in a hurry, "Yes, Master, this disciple didn't see anything." "Feixu," Mu Feixu abruptly appeared and knelt down on her knees. "Disciple is here. Keep watch over Xianxia and make sure that he doesn't take a single step away from this hall. You have my permission to break his legs if he dares disobeys my order." After that, her snowy figure blurred and reappeared far, far away from the sacred hall. She would need a long time to digest everything Xianxia had just told her. "Yes, Master." Mu Feixu entered the sacred hall and sat next to Xianxia. They stayed that way in silence for a very long time. The world was exceptionally silent, and the sound of the wind and snow outside the hall was exceptionally clear. Xianxia snuck a peek at Mu Feixu's profile. She had an exquisite countenance, white and soft skin, and a glow that colored her features in a way that not even the best painting in the world could describe, no matter where he looked. She was only sitting in silence, and yet that did not stop her from looking like a proud, blooming ice lotus in the heavenly Netherfrost Lake, so perfect that her mere presence dissuaded anyone from getting near. Xianxia's lips moved slightly as he tried to think of something to break the ice, but to his surprise, Mu Feixu actually took the initiative to look at him and ask, "You found your little fairy, haven't you?" "Irk," her question caught Xianxia off guard. "Why do you say that?" "It's because the way you look at me is different from before." Xianxia opened his mouth slightly but couldn't say anything in return. "It looks like I'm right," Mu Feixu whispered. "Do we really look that similar to each other?" "Amen," Xianxia nodded. "Appearance-wise, the two of you don't really look all that similar to each other, but personality-wise, that is a completely different story." You both give off the feeling that you're a block of ice all the way down to the heart. And it is as if emotions would eternally remain a foreign concept to you, even though you possess such amazing beauty. When I met you for the first time, especially because your back was the first thing I glimpsed, there were several instances that I thought that I'd finally found her. He couldn't help but recall the first time he met Chu Yuechen and the daughter they had. The corner of his lips subconsciously curled into a smile. Mu Feixu turned away when she saw the small but sincere smile on his face that seemed warm enough to melt everything. She asked quietly, if she is truly as cold and heartless as you claimed, then how did she become your little fairy in the first place? That is a good question. Yun Qi placed his hands behind his head before sighing emotionally, saying, I thought I knew women very well already, but it is only later that I realized that a woman's heart is without a doubt the hardest thing to figure out in the world. Mu Feixu. For example, I still don't understand how you were able to recognize me back at illusory Smoke City. Yun Qi started staring at Mu Feixu's profile without restraint after her gaze had turned away from him. Unfortunately, not only did Mu Feixu not react to his wanton attention in the slightest, she hadn't spoken to him since. Although there were only a handful of people who knew the truth behind the crimson crack, a tense atmosphere still soundlessly enveloped the entire Eastern Divine region as the day of the Eternal Heaven General Assembly approached. Even the Western Divine region and the Southern Divine region were growing more and more anxious because of the changes that were occurring across the Eastern Divine region as of late. Obviously, the Eternal Heaven God Emperor's decision to invest every resource and manpower in the King Realms and Upper Star Realms into building a great dimensional formation ensured that everyone's attention was firmly affixed to the Eternal Heaven General Assembly that was soon to begin. In fact, Luo Guxi's intrusion into the Snow Song Realm, only to be defeated decisively by Mu Xuanyin and have an arm taken away in the process, didn't cause as much of a ripple in the God realm as it should have. Of course, neither Xia Qingyu, the Eternal Heaven God Emperor, nor Shui Qianheng were planning to spread this news. Luo Guxi, the loser of the battle, was even less likely to spread the news of her defeat to a Middle Realm king to the world. That was why the news was only known to a small circle. However, it was impossible to keep it a secret from everyone. Time passed quickly, and the day of the Eternal Heaven General Assembly had finally arrived. Although the Eastern Divine Region, the Western Divine Region, and the Southern Divine Region had all sniffed something awry, none of them had any idea that this shockingly massive meeting, that demanded the participation of all divine masters from the Eastern Divine Region, was really a meeting of impossible despair. It was a meeting where the strongest powers in the world gathered to make one final struggle. The dimensional formations and the star tablets set up for the Profound God Convention several years ago were long gone, so the participants of the General Assembly could only head to the Eternal Heaven God realm themselves. A frost-looking profound arc soared through the sky of the Snow Song realm and vanished in an instant, leaving behind an instantaneous trail of blue light. No one could imagine that this blue light would be deciding the fate of the entire primal chaos. The profound arc flew out of the Snow Song realm and straight into the cosmos. Countless stars were passing through the sides of the profound arc at high speed. If they had used the vanishing moon's celestial palace instead, they could have reached the Eternal Heaven God realm in just a day's time. However, the suggestion had been rejected by Mu Xuanyin. The vanishing moon celestial palace uses a huge amount of rare fuel. It should be saved for a time of need. The ice profound arc they were riding on was small, but it was pretty fast since it was enhanced by Mu Xuanyin's power. On the other hand, it had no interior space to speak of whatsoever. Since the moment they entered into space, Yun Qi had had a hard time trying to deal with the fierce gale of the cosmos. By the time he had finally gotten used to it, his bones had nearly collapsed. Not only did Mu Xuanyin show no intentions of helping him at all, she had been doing nothing except standing at the frontmost part of the ice profound arc, staring forward. She had completely ignored Yun Qi and his predicament. The space of eternal heaven was vast, beautiful, and mysterious. This was also the second time Yun Qi had left the boundaries of a star realm and flown across the cosmos in person. His first time in the cosmos was with Xia Qingyu, but they had been inside the vanishing moon's celestial palace at the time. This time, though, he was feeling every bit of the cosmos without any sort of protection. "Master!" Yun Qi walked up to Mu Xuanyin's back while keeping the flow of the cosmos around him under control. "This disciple has a question to ask. Has there been any rumors regarding me being the inheritor of the heretic god's power in the eastern divine region while I was gone? Mu Xuanyin frowned slightly before asking. Why do you ask? Xianxia answered. When I forced my way into the star god realm, I had thrown some of the consequences of my actions to the back of my head. At the time, heavenly origin star god Tumi had figured out immediately that I might possess heretic god's inheritance. Although he's dead now, the star gods and elders who were present that day still heard everything clearly. Mu Xuanyin considered this for a moment before replying. Right now, there is nothing the star god realm is more afraid of than being exposed as the reason why the evil infant has awakened into the world. Therefore, they'll only do their very best to hide the details of your forced entry and your relationship with the heavenly slaughter star god, not the other way around. I haven't heard of any such rumors in the eastern divine region, so that probably means that your secret hasn't been exposed yet. Xianxia nodded. I see, I guess it no longer matters, though. Everyone in the world is soon to find out. Have you figured out how to face the heavenly smiting devil emperor? Mu Xuanyin asked. Xianxia nodded, then shook his head immediately. I don't know, maybe my preparation will turn out to be entirely useless. No one can predict what will happen next after all. Then there's no need to think any longer. Mu Xuanyin's voice turned colder. Remember, you are not allowed to leave my side after we've entered the eternal heaven realm, and you are definitely not allowed to make any decisions without consulting me. Understand? Yes, master, Xianxia replied obediently. When he first entered the eternal heaven realm, Mu Bingyun was the one who was in charge of supervising him. However, Mu Bingyun was really a gentle person despite her stern appearance. There were many times she couldn't bear to stop Xianxia even though he did something willful. But Mu Xuanyin was different from Mu Bingyun. It would take a miracle for Xianxia to do something crazy while she was present. 3 days later, the massive gate that was the eternal heaven gate and the cloud-piercing tower that was the eternal heaven tower finally entered their vision. When the ice-profound arc landed, Xianxia followed right behind Mu Xuanyin as he entered the eternal heaven god realm once more.